Good morning, everyone. Sorry about the little delay. Been just having some internet issues right off the bat, but things are going good today. Uh, so, as you most of you know, we are here for the Ahmaud Arbery trial. Let me set this up so we can get into it. Share screen. They're in the courtroom now, so I'm going to get into that. Talk about yesterday's crazy news. Play this. Let's go live. Make sure this is turned up. Mm. Nate, did you see the newest drone footage of the Rosenbaum shooting? Yeah, I saw that. They were trying to bring that in for that garbage in, but it's over. That case that case is over.
I just want to make sure. I know that
Thanks
front
for
seat,
the straight
it's
non-political.
difficult.
Thank you,
Corner
thank
here,
you. I
it's difficult
appreciate
to
it.
see the big board. Do you have a full view? Okay, I just want to make sure. All right, I've got all 15 present. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back.
We got the
Hopefully
jury
everybody
here.
had a good evening. We are ready to continue with the presentation of evidence in this case.
Ahmaud Arbery. Hold on.
Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, the state's ready. At this time, the state will call Officer Jeffrey Brandenburg.
All right. You know what? It's funny because yesterday, I think a lot of people missed the first officer because we were captivated with the the Rittenhouse trial. Listen, I don't care who's telling you anything about Rittenhouse trial. That trial is done, right? I'm actually trying to see if they get a directed verdict after that trial. That trial is done. It's what do they got to prove? So now on to Ahmaud Arbery. That's some good stuff happened yesterday, but I got to put it in together in this little video package.
Officer Brandenburg, you've been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Please state your name and spell it for the record, please.
Jeff Brandenburg, Jeffberry.
Everybody can hear everything all right?
Deberry.
All right. And how are you currently employed?
I work for Glenn County Police Department.
And how long have you worked for the Glenn County Police Department?
About 4.5
We had the
5 years.
officer on the scene yesterday, and just to reiterate,
All right, so
the McMichaels told
let's
the
go ahead and
officers
talk
they
about
only
your
saw
entire
Ahmaud
career in law
Arbery running,
enforcement real
right?
quick,
They
okay?
didn't
When
know
did
he
you
stole
start in law
anything, they knew
enforcement?
nothing. They just
I was
saw him
hired
running.
at the end of
That's what they had for
2016.
Ahmaud Arbery yesterday. So
I put
That's
through
where
the
we're at
academy,
right now.
graduated in 2017. Worked for Glenn County for about 2.5 years.
Sure.
Ended up leaving and moving up to North Georgia to be with my wife and family. Stayed up there for about 8 months, and we decided to move back here, where I got my job back early 2020.
All right, so early 2020, you were rehired by Glenn County Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, when you were rehired in early 2020, what were your job duties and responsibilities at that time?
I was a patrol officer at the time. I was assigned an area to patrol. My assignment was to patrol that area and answer calls in that area and back up other officers if they need.
And is that currently still, are those currently still your job duties and responsibilities?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're a patrol officer.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now, as a patrol
this
officer,
is
you're
another
in a
patrol
suit
officer who
today.
went to the
What do you
scene.
normally wear as a patrol
Navy,
officer?
what's up?
I normally wear my department issued uniform along with a duty belt and a body camera.
And when you're a patrol officer currently and back in early 2020, are you alone in your car or are you with somebody?
No, ma'am. Policy is that when you come back, you have to go back through field training.
All right, so when you came back in early 2020, did you actually go through field training?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is your FTO or field training officer?
Officer Caitlin
For
Roberts.
those of you who don't know, this is the Ahmaud Arbery trial.
So
Now
once you finish the field training with Glenn County,
they're going back by his training and everything. So I just want everybody to understand too. We switch back. All right. So nobody's shocked and surprised, right? What we do is we switch back between trials, right? Now, yesterday was a big day for the Rittenhouse trial. So we stayed there more or less all of the morning. And then we kind of just was like, all right, that trial is more or less over. So now we're back at Ahmaud Arbery. But I'm going to go back to the Rittenhouse trial for two reasons. Number one, after the prosecution ends its case in chief, we're going to see if the judge dismisses the more serious charges. And the reason why we want to see that, because I believe the judge is going to dismiss most of the serious charges based on what we've seen. It is unlikely that that's going to happen. It is extremely, extremely rare that it does, but I would be shocked if he does it, to be honest with you. I put it at maybe a 50-50 shot, which is extremely, extremely rare, right? Extremely rare that's going to happen, but I have faith in the system. Now, if it doesn't happen, then the defense is probably going to put in this case, but we're not going to want it. We're going to stay with Ahmaud Arbery until we have some bombs that if there's a bomb that happens over there at the Rittenhouse case, we're going to Rittenhouse. But until then, we're going to stay here and see what's happened with Ahmaud Arbery. So, Ahmaud Arbery, second cop at the scene. Let's do it.
Are you a single person in the car or two people in the car?
One person.
And the car you're in, is that a marked patrol car?
It is.
And are you a post-certified law enforcement officer?
I am.
All right, so you've gone through training down at the Georgia Peace Officer Standards Training Council facility.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I'm going to direct you specifically to February 23rd, 2020. All right, is this your first day back on the job?
I believe it was my second.
The second day. All right, tell the jury what was going on with you that day.
We're backing up other officers on a domestic violence call. I heard a call for shots fired come over the radio in Satilla Shores. So Caitlin and I got in her car and went down to Satilla Shores, responded.
All right, so you were actually out on a different call.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was a domestic violence call?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so when you heard this, you're with your field training officer. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you head to Satilla Shores.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So how were you feeling that day?
Actually, I was sick. I was not feeling well at all.
All right. You had a head cold?
Yes, ma'am.
Why couldn't you take the day off?
I hadn't accrued any time off yet.
This was your second day back.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to ask you a question. You ever testified at a trial before?
Not with a jury, no, ma'am. Certainly not on TV.
Let me pull them up. This is a felony murder.
All right,
so
we're gonna take it easy
essentially,
here.
they have
All right.
they have some murder charges, but
so
really it's felony murder.
Satilla Shores. What
In
county is that
the
in?
commission
Queen County.
of committing a
I'm
false
gonna direct your
imprisonment,
attention
because they're
to
saying that
February 2020.
their
Prior
false
to that
arrest
date,
wasn't
did you
legally
know
permissible.
the man seated
In the
over
commission
there,
of committing a felony of false
William Roddy
arrest,
Bryant?
No, ma'am.
they killed Ahmaud
And
Arbery.
prior to February
So that's
2020,
a
did you
felony
know
murder
Greg was
murder
seated?
conviction.
No, ma'am.
Oh, a felony
And
murder
prior
trial.
to
I'm
February
sorry.
2020, did you know
That's
that?
what we're talking about.
No, ma'am.
Good question, though.
All right, so on this day that you're with your field training officer, what's your shift that day?
I was on day
Correct.
shift, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. I believe.
So day shift is a 12-hour shift.
Yes, ma'am. At the time, I believe it was. It may have been a 10-hour shift.
What's
I don't
the
recall.
felony being committed during the killing? The felony of what's it called?
You were in your
Unlawful-
uniform.
false
And
Yes, ma'am.
the
imprisonment.
car you were
In the
in was
commission of
marked.
trying
Yes,
to
ma'am.
falsely imprison Mr. Arbery, they killed him.
So when you and Officer Roberts arrived, who was driving the car?
Officer Roberts.
What were you assigned to go do when you arrived at the corner of Holmes and Satilla?
I was tasked with interviewing Greg McMichael.
All right. And did you, in fact, go up to speak with Greg Michael?
I did.
And was that captured on your body cam video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And have you had the opportunity to review your body cam video, States Exhibit 189?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that body cam video fair and accurate as you recall your interaction on the scene that day?
It was.
And in addition, have you reviewed the transcript associated with States 189,
Thank
States
you, thank you,
189A,
thank you.
the transcript of that interaction?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it fair and accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
At this time, the state would tender into evidence States 189 and 189A.
No objection.
Objection.
Objection subject to certain limitations, Your Honor.
I don't know what the limitations are.
Okay.
Do I need to do this outside the presence of the jury?
Well, maybe we probably could just approach briefly.
The fact that they didn't see him.
I'm going to ask you
The
to take a
fact
step
that
into
they
the,
didn't
the jury
see
room,
him
and
come
we'll
out
bring
the
you back
house.
out in just a moment.
All right for the jury, please.
So they got to. I'm surprised they just don't do sidebars. Why they got the jury walking in and out? But anyway, to answer John's question, if I'm in the defense shoes, I have to get the citizens arrest thing over. And You don't got citizen's arrest if you didn't know what he was doing, right? If he's just running down the street and you're saying I'm arresting him, and they say what are you arresting him for, and you don't know him, that's tough. That's tough.
Please seated.
That's the one. Ugh. I don't know what the best
Made by
argument for
Travis
them is
McMichael
though.
on
Maybe the
video
fact
that
that they
we
saw me before.
do
I
not
don't
intend
know.
to play for the jury. And we were talking here just a moment ago. Is it correct that the state is not seeking to have the videos, the body cam videos, go back into the jury room?
Depends on how they were tendered and admitted.
Well, if it's admitted, then it is something the jury could watch again.
Well, depends on, but let me think about that for a second. So in this particular case, the reason we're not playing the videos is because of the brutal issues associated with them. And so my understanding is that the parties had discussed the brutal issues and agreed that there are parts of those videos that contain brutal problems
Right.
that will not be played to the jury.
Right.
So when you say that they'll have them in the back to play, no. One, because of the brutal issues, but two, because as videos, this court's position is if a video is going to be replayed,
Right.
it would have to be done with all the formalities of trial based upon a request by the panel.
Okay.
So not,
Very good. That's fine. There are portions of the videos, however, that don't impact brutal. They show what's going on, they show behavior, they show conduct, etc.
Now,
I just wanted to
all
make
right,
it clear,
so
there is a statement by Travis that he makes
there's a
pretty early
state.
on in
There
the
seems to
video
be a
to
state
Officer
law
Brandenburg and
issue,
Officer Roberts that we are not
um,
intending to put into evidence. And
called
so to the
Bruton,
extent that we've agreed
about
that this
something
video is
with,
in evidence, we are not intending to put in a
I think all
statement
the
that
audio is
is,
a bit quiet.
particular
Yeah, the
statement
audio
that
for the
we
trial
use.
was tried, but I'm not sure what Bruton is. I gotta look
it's been
Bruton up.
tendered.
I don't
I
know.
understand.
It's a
brutal
Georgia,
issues
something
have been
specific
addressed.
to
If there's
Georgia.
something separate, some statement that is,
Let me see what a
tell me the
Bruton
statement. I don't know what the statement is, and I don't know whether
is.
it is one of the brutal statements or objectionable for some other reason.
well, we have a discussion with the state about opening the door to other evidence. And we're not sure that this statement would open the door if we sought to admit it. And so we, out of an abundance of caution, we're not seeking to admit the statement that Travis makes early on when he's there with Officer Roberts, because we don't want.
So
the state
they're
to believe
so
that it's opened
they're
the door if
so
they have not come
the
to us and
confrontation
said
issue with the
it's
all right,
open
all
the
right, all
door,
right.
just out of an abundance of caution.
So I'm now all right. So now I understand what you're talking about.
The
Bruton issue.
statement
Okay, so what they're
is-
talking about, a Bruton issue, is usually a confrontation clause. So they're saying that in that video, from what I'm understanding,
The
all right, so
last
I'm
thing
reading
I
it
ever
now.
wanted to do.
In the video, there are statements that are made in that video
It's on
by
page
people
3
who the defendant
of the
can't
transcript.
confront, right?
I'm
Because
sorry,
those
statement.
those statements would be witnesses
The last
against
thing I ever
the
wanted to
defendant.
do, or ever
And the
wanted to
defendants
happen,
can't
but
challenge,
line
can't
23.
confront those witnesses about those statements that are made. So the court is saying, well, those statements can't come
And
into
so
the
to the
jury
extent that
because the defense doesn't, the
we're
defendants
not, we
don't
just
have the
don't
right
want the
to,
state to
can't
later say that because
confront
we
those
didn't
witnesses who
state
are
this
on
the
tape,
record that somehow we
So
now
they
put the
cut out
statement
those
of
parts
evidence
of the
opens
tape
door
where the
to
where
some
people are testifying that the defendants can't challenge.
other
It's
motive evidence or something
I
like
think it's Bruton versus.
I do understand where defense counsel is going at this point in time.
The citation.
Um,
I've never
again,
had to do
the
with
answer
Bruton issue,
is,
though.
at this point in time, the state is not going to put that
Confrontation
statement
clause.
into evidence.
Oh, here it is, right here.
If Mr. McMichael were to take the stand and it became an issue, the state may ask him, did you say this? And we would maybe recall Brandenburg if he denied having said this. And we will go down that road at the time if Mr. McMichael was ever to testify. So at this point in time, the state is not putting that statement in.
That's what they're
And so
talking
to
about
be
for
very
the
clear
Bruton issue.
that
I've never dealt with a
that
Bruton
was
issue
our
before.
concern. And we're not intentionally being, it's not being argued that we're intentionally opening the door by putting that statement.
I understand.
Okay, very
All right. Okay, let's go get the panel.
All right, I'm turning my mic up more. Well, matter of fact, let me see if the right mic is here. Hold on one second. If I even have the right mic. Because sometimes this acts up. Test, test, test. This is the mic is on. Mic is up. Mic volume is low. Okay, let me do that. All right, mic check, mic check. Let me know if let me know what's up. Mic check, mic check. Why are they doing this? No, they had the jury leave out, and now they're bringing the jury back in. Yeah, I'm surprised they just didn't do a sidebar or, let's walk to the back. But I had the whole jury walk up. It's 15 people. It's interesting. I've never dealt with a Bruton issue, though. Never. I'm thinking, but I don't know. Well, that's true, too. Back in the day, I didn't have a lot of video when I was around back in the day. let me stop my bot. That my bot is going crazy in there. It's gonna make it a regular person. Jury's coming back in. So just so clear up about the Bruton issue. All right. So we were talking about when you hear the Bruton issue is that there are people making statements on that video that the defendants can't challenge. They can't confront those witnesses. So those statements can't come in because there's a confrontation clause. I can't confront those witnesses. It's really a hearsay issue, but it's for Bruton. So that's what they're talking about.
Thank you for your patience.
So they've cut some of those. They've cut those pieces out of the video.
Give me the numbers again.
So
Yes, Your Honor, at this
you don't
time,
have
the
that
state
issue.
enters into evidence States Exhibit 189, the body cam video, and States Exhibit 189A, the transcript of the body cam video, neither of which will go back with the jury during their deliberations. It's strictly being tendered.
No,
for
just a couple of
the
procedural
record,
issues, nothing
with
serious.
the understanding about portions may be played if relevant to the case.
Understand based on the record that has been created on the tender that they are admitted subject to certain limitations already placed on the record.
Acknowledge, yeah.
I think I said that correctly.
Let me look at.
All right, so
Let me work with my bot here. Because you guys like the.
Officer Brandenburg,
Allow you guys to do the.
what name did Mr. McMichael give you when you first went up to interview him? And I'll direct you to page 10 of States Exhibit 189A.
Gregory Johns, Johns McMichael, McMichael.
And where did he tell you he lived?
230 Satilla Shore,
All right. And what was his weight?
230 pounds,
How tall was he?
5'10".
And did he also give you his phone number?
He did 912-217-1726.
All right. And is this standard procedure to go up to somebody and ask them this biographical information?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall exactly what he was wearing when you spoke with him?
Yes, ma'am. He was wearing flip-flops, blue jeans, a gray long sleeve shirt, and I believe a black hat at one point.
This is the second officer at the scene.
I heard that. You can just try to pull the microphone in front of you. The way the jury stand's working, it's a little awkward, but if you try to speak into the microphone.
You need me to repeat anything?
No, I heard that.
Okay.
All right. And you've identified Mr. McMichael as the man I talked to. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you guys can spam in all caps now, but don't spam
Now,
too much.
Greg McMichael, at that point in time,
But you
did you
guys
notice
can-
anything on his hands?
Yes, he had blood on, I believe it was his left hand.
Permission duration.
So directing your attention specifically to page 13.
But you know what? I'm going to give you.
Okay. Starting with the line, he had his arm. What did Greg McMichael talk about? What did Greg McMichael tell you about the blood that was on his left hand?
He said he had his arm when he went down, face down, and his arm was stuck that underneath him. And I don't know if he was going for a weapon or what, because at that point he was still breathing. So I pulled his arm out to see if there was a weapon in it.
Okay. So now I'm going to direct you specifically to page 17 of the transcript. All right. Did Greg McMichael tell you what happened? And I'm going to have you do the specific quote of what he said, lines 5 through 9.
Yes, ma'am. He said, okay,
Look at these
I was
people
in my
taking
driveway
advantage.
Working on I'm reupholstering some boat cushions in the back of my truck. I look up, this guy comes hauling ass down the street. I'm talking about dead run. He's not jogging.
He's running, not. Yeah,
And
now
then
that's
going
one
to
of
lines
that's
13.
now that's one of the things I want to say too. Let's just stop with the BS about him being a jogger, right? Ain't nobody jogging out there in Thames in a bit dead in that night. Now, another piece of misinformation out there that for some reason a lot of people like to say is that he was wearing boots when he was jogging this time. No, he wasn't wearing boots this time. He was in, as they called it yesterday, tennis shoes. So he did have sneakers on when they shot him. So he wasn't running in Timbs at that time. But a couple of nights before he was running in Timbs. So let's keep it real. So let's just, if you want to call him a jogger because you want to go with that narrative, fine. But I just want to be very clear. Ahmaud Arbery was no jogger, right? He wasn't jogging. It was, I don't know what he was doing there. He didn't commit no burglary, right? But to say he was a jogger, that stretches the imagination. That's like, it just does. He was running, sure, he was running from something, but he wasn't jogging. He wasn't on a leisurely jog. He was running. He was a straight runner. For what? That's what we're here to find out.
Through 15, what did he say?
Right this way. Several nights ago, numerous occasions, the guy has broken into a house over there. They've got him on video.
All right. And when you asked same house, what did he say?
Same house. Nobody could ever catch him. They've had him on video going into that house numerous times.
And then going to the next page, page 18. Did he get more specific about how many times they've got him on video?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he say on lines 2 to 3?
Anyway, they got him on video going into this house 2 or 3 times.
Now, generally, what did Greg McMichael tell you about his location when the actual shooting and homicide took place?
He said he was in the back of the truck.
Now directing you specifically to page 21. Okay. So if we're going to start off with line 10.
Oh yeah, of
So
course.
in regard
Yeah.
to how
I'm
Greg
just,
McMichael
it's
did
just,
to recognize
I just like to be
Mr. Arbery,
factual
who
with
had been
the
inside
information,
that house
right?
2 or 3 times on
That
video.
by him
Line
being
10,
not
what
a
did Mr.
jogger does not
McMichael
mean
say?
at all.
I've seen these videos, so I know what the guy looks like. Black male. He wears short pants generally, a white t-shirt. He's got these little short dreads. I don't know what the hell you call them, but anyway. So I'm standing in my front yard just a little while ago. This guy comes hauling ass down the street. Like I said, like something's after him.
Okay. So as part of this, did he tell you what he did next on line 17?
Yes, ma'am.
So starting with so I.
He said, so I haul ass into my bedroom to get my 357 Magnum.
All right, so hold on. I'm going to have you
Damn.
back up to line 17.
Okay.
Okay, so what does it say there?
In the meantime, so I haul ass back into the house.
Okay.
I said,
All right. Don't want to go into that next line, right? Okay. So we're talking about what Greg McMichael did here,
Mhm.
right? Okay. So then what did Greg McMichael say I did on line 19?
so I haul ass into my bedroom to get my 357 Magnum.
Okay. And then going down to line 22, okay, starting with don't know, what does he say the reason is he gets his gun?
Don't know if the guy's armed because the other night the guy stuck his hands down his pants.
Okay. And what did he say about that at the end of line 24 and 25?
I don't take any chances.
That's a good fact though for the defense. The fact that he was telling him, "Hey, listen, we thought this guy was armed. That's the reason why we
All right,
got
so
our
now,
guns."
Going
So
to kind of the
that
next
that's
page,
reasonable,
while you
right?
were
It's
talking
reasonable.
to
If you
him,
think somebody's armed, you
was
get your
his
guns.
demeanor, what was his demeanor?
He was pretty amped up. He was he appeared a little upset. He was talking a lot with gestures and using his hands.
Would you describe him as animated?
Yes.
All right. And you said amped up as well.
Mhm.
All right. So did he know where he was?
He knew the general area. He did not know what street he was on.
All right. Did you have to tell him what street he was on?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And as part of that conversation at the end of page 22, did he indicate where he saw the man running down?
Yes,
Line
ma'am.
21.
He's running down Satilla Drive
Okay. And then what did Mr. McMichael say he went from Satilla Drive?
onto Burford.
Now, while you're doing this
Hey.
interview at this part, how often are you interrupted?
Quite regularly.
All right. Like, could you get a continuous narrative from Mr. McMichael while you're standing there?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Because I was interrupted by other officers and other people on scene,
Okay, when you say other people on scene, what do you mean other people on scene?
general bystanders, people who were curious and watching.
All right. So did you try and kind of direct him back to keep talking to you at a certain point in time?
Several times.
All right. So at a certain point where you're trying to get him back, did you try and tell him, you saw the guy in Burford, the guy was cut off, and then the guy turned around and went back?
Mm.
Did you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at that point, you're trying to tell him, okay, so tell me what happened next. What does he say on page 24 that happened next? On line 2 through 4.
Said I jumped in the back of the truck because I didn't want to sit in that damn kid's seat again. I jumped in the back of the truck.
Okay. So at this point, while you're standing there, are you near the white pickup truck?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when he says, I jump in the back of the truck because I don't want to sit in that damn kid seat again, does this truck have like only 2 seats, or are there 4 seats? Is it a 2-door,
It
4-door?
was a single cab. It only had the front driver's seat, and then I believe it was a bench seat, and then the passenger seat.
All right. And what was in the passenger seat, if you recall?
There was a child's kid seat.
And is it your understanding that he's talking about on Burford, he jumps out to get in the back of the truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, after he
This
goes
is
ahead
not
and
actually as
jumps in
bad
the
as
back of the
steps I think
truck,
it's going to be.
line 7,
I think they got a shot.
where
I think
does
they got a
the
interesting shot.
black male go?
He's running down the damn road.
Okay.
Uh,
And what did Greg McMichael indicate that he was saying to the black man who was running down the damn road?
street.
Stop, stop, stop. I want to talk to you.
And when he got the truck up next to him, what did Greg McMichael say? Greg McMichael said to the black man.
Stop, goddammit.
Was it clear at this point in time exactly where the truck was stopped when he said, stop, goddammit?
No, ma'am, not really.
Stop,
Did he
goddamn it,
indicate
stop.
how many times he had said to Ahmaud Arbery, stop, goddammit?
It sounded to me like he said stop, goddammit one time.
Now, did you ask Mr. Greg McMichael how many shots there were?
I did.
What did he say?
He said there were 2 shots.
I'm going to direct your attention now to page 25 at the top. And you ask him, so you heard 2 shots.
Mhm.
What does he indicate?
He said he saw him.
Okay. And then lines 6 through 9. What did he say then?
I saw him. Yeah. In fact, if to be perfectly honest with you, if I could have got a shot at the guy, I'd have shot him myself because he was that violently. And then we were interrupted again.
And you're interrupted again.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the person who interrupted you at this time, was this a law enforcement officer?
I don't believe so, no, ma'am.
Okay, it's just some bystander stranger who walks up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, Officer Brandenburg.
Now, this is the reason why they can't just play, because a lot of people may be confused, like, why don't they just play the police body cam? But you hear how he was stopped and then somebody else came and said something on camera. So those statements that the other person says are out of court statements being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. Now, this is something that I'm surprised that happened in the Rittenhouse trial a lot. In the Rittenhouse trial, you always heard all these, they kept playing the audio with the video. But here, they're very conscious of that. They're saying, no, we, because I don't want to say they have better lawyers, but their lawyers are like, yo, we got a confrontation clause issue because you can't be letting, those statements of other people come in, and I can't challenge those statements. I can't cross-examine just the video. I need to cross-examine a person. So if you want to let those statements come in, we need to be able to cross-examine those people. So that's why that's why they've taken transcripts of the body cam, and he's reading back portions of the transcripts that are admissible. Now, the pieces that are admissible here in this courtroom are both what he said, right? Because he's the person on the stand, but also the statements of the defendant, because that's an exception to hearsay. In the federal rules, it's not considered hearsay. So with whatever the defendant says, it's called a party opponent admission, and they can come in. So that's why he's saying, what is the defendant saying? He can just read the statement that off. But when it comes to somebody else interrupted me, that statement is out, and that's why he has to do this way. I know that was a little long, but it's important to understand why they're doing it this way. It's supposed to be it's a confrontation clause on piece, and that was the now I forget the name of the case, the Bruton issue that they were talking about earlier.
Second day back on the job, right? You have a cold. Did you allow this strange person to come up and start talking to Greg?
I did.
All right. So at any point in time Was Greg McMichael isolated from speaking with any of the other parties there?
No.
Was he told to sit on the curb and don't move?
No.
Was he put in the back of a patrol car?
No.
And so some strange guy just comes up to him and starts talking to him.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you didn't stop him or tell him to go away?
I did not.
All right. And during this point in time when this unknown man comes up, did your sergeant also come up and interrupt?
Yes.
Okay. So you got your sergeant coming up and interrupting, you got unknown people coming up and interrupting, and you're trying to get a statement from this person.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now,
That's why
Person
you
who
don't
walked
get
up,
statements on the
was this
street. You
a
you
man
move
or
them to a
woman?
certain
It was
to a
a
different
male.
place.
white, black,
Let's go to the
Asian,
office.
or
Let's go in the
Hispanic?
back of the
White
car. Let's go downtown.
Did he ever identify
know.
himself?
No.
Did he appear to know Greg McMichael?
He appeared to.
Did Greg McMichael appear to know him?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and direct your attention now to page 26. All right. Bottom of page 26. And this, we're going to go through this. All right. So this is this unknown male speaker talking. And where are you when this is happening?
I believe I was taking down driver's license information.
Okay. So they're standing right there.
Yes, ma'am. They were right next to me.
All right. And this is captured on your body cam?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So line 22, when the male speaker comes up to Greg McMichael, what does this man say to Greg McMichael?
He said, I was concerned that it might have been the drunk guy that lives up there on the corner in that house on the right-hand side there.
Okay. And Greg McMichael says, yeah. What does the guy say next on line 1, page 27?
He's always on the road. He's always walking on the road.
And what does Greg McMichael say?
Oh, the one that kind of shuffles?
And the male speaker agreed with him?
Yes.
What did Greg McMichael say next?
Yeah, no, this ain't no shuffler. This guy's an asshole. I mean, he was hooked up when he came around that street.
All right, so hold on. Greg McMichael says, this ain't no shuffler.
Yes, ma'am.
This guy's an asshole. Who's
Yes,
he
ma'am.
talking about?
I'm assuming Ahmaud Arbery.
Okay. And he
Yes,
says, I
but
mean,
they
he was hooked up when he came around the street.
remember earlier when they said the defense and the prosecution walked through it, and there were pieces that they accepted that, okay, even though we're going to allow them to testify to those. So what you're seeing now is what the defense and the prosecution have come to an agreement to say, these are the pieces that we'll allow in. So that's why they're allowed to say these ones, because you're not allowed to confront them, but the defense has kind of waived it and said, okay, we'll allow these pieces in that we can't confront. So yeah, so that, and if you wind it back, you'll hear the judge say that you guys talked about it and decided which statements we'll allow in or not.
That's what he's telling this other man.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How far away were you from the dead body of Ahmaud Arbery when he called him an asshole?
20, 30 feet maybe. Maybe a little bit further than that.
And at this point in time, was Ahmaud Arbery surrounded by EMS and other people?
Yes, ma'am.
The male speaker then asks, was he walking? What does Greg McMichael say?
No, running flat out. Running flat out. I don't know where he was coming from down there.
So he's telling this stranger, I don't know where he's coming from.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the male speaker says, you never know what's going on. And then he asks him, are you okay? What does Greg McMichael say?
Thank you so much for that.
What's he talking about?
I'm not sure.
Was he given some water at this point?
He was.
All right. And the male speaker says, can I get some more stuff? What does Greg McMichael say? Line 18.
I'm sorry.
When the male speaker at line 16 says, I can go get some more stuff, what does Greg McMichael respond?
I'm perfectly fine.
And then does the male speaker inquire about his son? Is your son okay?
Yes, ma'am.
What's Greg McMichael say?
He's upset as hell.
Does he repeat that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the male speaker says, I can imagine.
Mhm.
The male speaker then asks him a question. What does the male speaker ask him at line 25?
So the guy have a gun.
And what does Greg McMichael say on the top of page 28?
No, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell if it's one on him or not, but he attacked my son.
At this point in time, are you interrupted again?
Yes, ma'am.
And who does the interrupting this time?
The coroner.
The coroner shows up.
Yes, ma'am.
And the male speaker's then asking him, oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he just said, he attacked my son. And what does Greg McMichael say?
He came at him.
And then what does Greg McMichael say?
He tried to get the damn shotgun away.
This isn't good.
So at this point in time, a total stranger's walked up and he's telling him that this is his narrative. He attacked my son, tried to get the shotgun away.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At that point, did the male speaker ask him, well, where's your son live?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did Greg McMichael say?
With me.
And then what did Greg McMichael tell him?
Right there. Yeah, you know my son, Travis, the redheaded kid.
Then what does he go on to refresh this man's recollection?
He was looking at your boat, was helping you with your boat.
All right. Now, did Greg McMichael indicate whether he had a cell phone on him or not?
He said he did not.
State wanted that excluded, but it
Do you have any
can
idea?
come in. They
how
probably
he got
want
his
to
cell phone
exclude for
started when he
hearsay,
calls at
but
the scene?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Did you see anybody walk up and give him his cell phone?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Now, generally, at this point in all of this, the coroner's there. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you kind of pivot away from interviewing Mr. McMichael?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to ask you a few questions. Did Greg McMichael ever indicate to you at that time that he thought Ahmaud Arbery, the guy, had committed a crime that day?
No, ma'am.
So he didn't say the guy committed the crime of this.
No, ma'am.
And when he said to you that numerous occasions the guy has broken into a house over there, they've got him on video, what house was Greg McMichael talking about?
A house down the road that was under construction.
Okay, so he's not talking about his home at 230 Satilla Drive.
No, ma'am.
All right. While speaking with you, did Greg McMichael ever use the word burglary?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever use the word trespass?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever tell you while you're talking to him that he was attempting to make a citizen's arrest?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever even use the word arrest?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever even use the word detain?
No, ma'am.
All right. Did he ever tell you that, oh, we were going to detain this guy and wait for the police to come and investigate?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever?
I gotta say this: if the people who are out there believing that this was a citizen's arrest, this line of question is really blowing up the citizen's arrest narrative like a mother, right? It's like, did he what did you get? What did he give it up? Did he say he was trying to arrest him for burglary, trying to arrest him for trespass? Was he even trying to arrest him at all? Detain him? Did he say anything like that? I don't know where you get this is damning testimony for
tell
somebody
you, oh, by the
allegedly
way, I
making
saw
a
Mr.
citizen's
Arbery
arrest.
throwing stuff out of his pockets as he ran.
No, ma'am.
All right. At this point, you've pivoted away. Do you spend some more
Of
time at
course.
the scene?
That's the name of the game.
All right. And what did you do then for the rest of the day? Did you stay at that scene or did you leave that scene?
No, ma'am. Once our investigative division arrived on scene, the scene was turned over to them. We went back in service on the way to headquarters so that I could start on the report.
All right. So what do you mean by back in service? What does that mean?
We were available for calls.
And did you actually go to any other call after this particular incident?
No, ma'am.
You went back to headquarters?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where's headquarters?
It is 157 Public Safety, or it was Public Safety Boulevard.
All right. And how long does it take you to get there from Satilla Shores?
15 minutes.
That's true. That's true. If everybody who entered
You
that
went to the station and
construction
did you
site,
write a report in conjunction with
There were
what
so
you'd
many
done that
people.
day?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And just a synopsis?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you upload your body cam video into the system at Glenn County Police Department headquarters?
I did.
Did that conclude your involvement in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Were you still on scene when Sheila Ramos showed up to start taking photos and everything, or had you left by that point in time?
I don't recall. I believe we were still there, but I don't recall 100%.
I may have one moment.
so what do we get from this witness? Let's just recap real quick what we got from this witness. I was writing it down. There was a past incident with a gun that he said, hey, he might have had a gun and
Did
he
you know
reached in his
the
thing.
address of the house
But
under
they're still doing it.
construction?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so he just said some house under construction.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And his address was the 230 Satilla Drive?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, did he ever indicate exactly how far he was right then and there from his house?
I believe he did. I believe he pointed at a 2-story house and said he was the one right next to it.
Very narrow, extremely narrow. The difference between a citizen's arrest, a false citizen's arrest, is kidnapping and false imprisonment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I forgot. Well, at the scene with Officer Caitlin Roberts, were some photos taken of Travis McMichael right then and there?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you witness Officer Caitlin Roberts taking those photos?
Yes, ma'am.
And prior to coming into court today, have you had the opportunity to review State's Exhibit 267 through 278?
Yes, ma'am.
267 through 278.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and were they fair and accurate pictures as far as what you recall Travis McMichael looking like at the scene at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At this time, the state would tender into evidence States Exhibit 267 through 278.
I'm gonna pull this down just for a second till I see it, because if YouTube hit me hard yesterday, guys. They're like erase those videos almost. So I gotta see what comes up first. I don't know if you guys saw what happened to David Packman. He's Twitch like booted him for a month because they put the pictures of.
I'm gonna go ahead and approach my picture. Thank you. Okay. So first off, taking a look at that. Is that really pixelated?
Before they
It is.
publish.
All right. So, and this is just the nature of the photos.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Because
And
the photo,
was
because
Officer
you can't show
an actual camera or with something else.
a crazy
I don't
body.
believe she was using a camera.
Okay. So her cell phone.
I think so.
So States 267.
All right, that's all right.
Is that what Travis McMichael looked like?
Yes, ma'am.
268.
Yes, ma'am.
Once again, are we looking at the wrist area of Travis McMichael?
Yes, ma'am.
Blood on his wrist.
269. Wrist area enhanced.
Yes, ma'am.
And 270.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we looking at the other arm here?
He got a lot of back because he was so close when he pulled it and he shot him. It blew up like a balloon, like a water balloon.
That's 270. 271. So the same picture?
Yes, ma'am.
272.
No, when you're asking somebody, what are you chasing the guy
Blood.
for? And you say, well, I was trying to arrest him for a burglary. That means okay, that's something
Okay.
different. If you say because he was just running, that's a whole
No,
different
see.
story, brother. That's a whole different story, guys.
Right?
Nick, what's up, brother?
270.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, same old, same old.
Back of-
Already into it, Jesus. This is
That there.
it's early, too early.
We're doing it again.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
275.
I know we got 400
Do we have
people
it?
here. So
Back
this is Nick from End Time. Nick, don't forget to put your
276.
channel in the chat so people know where you are,
Looking
where to find you.
Yes,
We'll do
So we
that.
all are on the same page. When the prosecution rests its case in the Rittenhouse trial, we are going for that motion to dismiss because I got money on that motion to dismiss. We're going to go see if the judge rules on the motion to dismiss. I believe he will. Most of the other lawyers think they will not. So we will see what happens with that. But we are staying here most of the day. 90% of the investors, we're going to be here on Arbery. So if you guys want to see Rittenhouse, you probably should go to another street. We're going to stay with Arbery. But when the prosecution rests its case today, we're going to Rittenhouse to see what if the judge kills it. So
That'll be interesting.
Good morning, Officer Brandenburg.
How you doing today, sir? Good morning.
Turn this so all my jurors can see me. That's not all you, okay?
we're on cross now. I don't know what I would probably inquire more about the gun and the fear for the gun. I'm not
Let's
sure.
get some further context on your testimony, and I want to start with beliefs that Greg McMichael told you he had concerning Mr. Arbery in the neighborhood. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the state read the part, or had you read the part where they thought he was coming from some house under construction down the street.
Yes,
right? You have your transcript up there, the
I do.
body cam. Let's go to page 6, line 6. And while you're getting there, Mr. McMichael actually went through the story with you 2 or 3 times.
Several times, yes, sir.
Right. And we were looking at one of those times when you went through it just now with the state on direct, right?
Yes, sir.
But he had already told it to you once before and even told it to you another time.
Again, yes, sir. He told me several times.
And in part that was because of the interruptions that were occurring and you had to stop and start.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The other part of that was for clarification purposes.
Right. And that's a police technique, have somebody tell the story a couple times, see if it stays the same.
Yes, sir.
His stayed the same.
Objection. That's the jury. Relevance.
That's sustained. Just go ahead and ask a different question.
Ah,
I'm sorry, was the objection sustained?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My microphone's on. It was sustained.
Okay.
they already throwing objections out.
Line
Prosecution,
6.
they letting them get
This is the
too
first
comfortable.
round through the story, am I right?
Yes, sir.
And you're talking to him, and he's describing to you who this guy is, who he thinks he is. And you with me at line 6, he says, this is Greg McMichael talking to you, right out here, and I imagine on the body cam he's pointing, as he says here, pointing down the street.
Objection, is there a question? Compound question?
That's fine. You're zeroing in on the question. Go ahead.
And right-
Compound
so when he
question.
says right out here, without turning on the whole video and all, when the person says right out here, he's pointing it.
I'd have to watch the video. I don't recall.
We will see. I'm probably going to
Let's
lose
go
my
on.
money.
He says,
It's
"This guy
hard, but
whom we've seen on video numerous times breaking into these other houses. He comes hauling ass down the street. I mean, he's got it hooked up.
you have to watch
That's
a little
what he said.
earlier. But
Yes, sir.
he's reading the transcript for the body cam.
And again, when he said breaking into these other houses, later on in your synopsis, as it was characterized, your report, you wrote in it that Mr. McMichael reported to you that he believed this guy had been breaking into houses in the neighborhood, right?
Prior, yes.
If you'll go to page 26, line 10. And we're just gonna do
And that's good. He
two
believed
more
because
of
it's about what he
these that
believed.
weren't found out just
He believed
now.
that he was
This is
breaking into
line
houses.
10, Mr. McMichael talking to you, but there's another person that has now come up, another police officer named Sergeant Leska.
Yes, sir.
And you know who Sergeant Leska
Yes, sir.
is, right? And so you're standing there, it's being recorded, but you're involved, I guess, in the conversation, even though he's now talking to Sergeant Leska.
Would have to watch the video, but I believe so.
All right, well, looking at your transcript at line 10, Mr. McMichael says to you and Sergeant Leska, he's the one breaking in
This is
all
pro
these
tip.
houses out here. He said that to you too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go to page 30, and we'll go to line 18. Now, another person's walked up. This is Christy Rozier, right?
Yes, sir.
And Christy Rozier is the coroner of Glenn County.
One of, yes, sir.
So Christy Rozier is standing there, and you're still involved in the conversation and talking with Christy Rozier and Greg McMichael, and I'm at line 18. Well, let's go to 16. Well, he makes frequent trips to the neighborhood and gets caught on video cameras like every third or fourth night, breaking into places, and nobody's been able to catch him.
That's a very good,
That's
very
what he
good
said to
catch.
you,
That's what he injected into our conversation, yes.
with the conversation with you and
Me and Ms.
Christy
Rozier.
Rozier.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so earlier when you read that no one has ever been able to catch him, you understood in the context of the conversation that we're not just talking about police, but also neighbors and Mr. McMichael.
At the time, I was unfamiliar with any kind of crime in Stilla Shores.
You
That's
didn't
not my,
have any background on that.
no, sir, that's not my typical zone. That's not where I usually patrol. I'm not very familiar with the area.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right, let's go back to.
But the question, I think you get the information from that
page
question now,
13.
because it doesn't matter. The answer didn't matter. The fact
Do a
that there were
different
other
topic
people
now. This is
concerned
where
about him breaking into
Mr.
houses.
McMichael,
That's what
saw
you want
that
the
he
jury
had
to hear.
blood on his hand, right?
Yes, sir.
And you understood, you learned that he got that blood on his hand because Mr. Arbery had fallen face down on the street and he had reached under his torso and pulled his arm out to see if he had a gun in his hand
He said he grabbed his arm and pulled his arm out. Yes, sir.
for the purpose of
For the
seeing
purpose of checking to see if he had a firearm. Yes, sir.
if he had
Or a weapon, I believe he said.
A weapon. All right.
That's a hell of a
Well,
fact.
he told you he did that because he had believed that this guy may have been armed.
That's what he said. Yes, sir.
And he told you that the reason he ran in his house and got his 357 before he pursued this man is because he doesn't take chances. If he thinks somebody's armed, he's going to be armed.
He said he doesn't take chances.
And you understood in the context of the conversation that he's saying, I'm getting my gun because I'm not going to take a chance that he's armed.
What he understands in the context of the conversation, this is about what Greg McMichael said, it's for the jury to determine.
I'm just establishing the context for the part of what this interview was and how it was meant, what he understood it to mean.
I think you asked in terms of what he understood Greg McMichael to mean. That's sustained then as a speculation on the witness' part.
Well, at any rate, the part you read
Oh
is
shit!
in the
Hold
context
on.
of it. He's telling you
Woo! We got to go
why
back to
he
the
went
to the
in his
Rittenhouse
house
trial
and got his
immediately
gun.
right now.
Ooh, what happened?
Bombshell happening here. They just caught somebody recording the jury. Remember the
Oh,
remember the threat for the jury? So they actually caught people recording the fucking jury. We're going right to Rittenhouse right now. The judge is speaking about it. Give me 1 second to switch it over. Wow.
Jesus.
That shit is crazy. See, I listened to I see a lot of people like, oh, Nate's probably not listening. No, I'm listening to both trials at the same time.
I'm fucking impressed. I'll be honest.
Which is pretty tough. Which is tough shit. I'm not going to front. That shit is tough. But yeah, I'm listening to them both, and that is woo woo. So we're going right here. So yeah, so people have been trying to dox the jury. They're on the stand now talking about. So here we go.
The jury, which that this morning at the pickup, there was someone there and was video recording the jury, which the officers approached the person and required him, her, I didn't even ask, to delete the video and return the phone to him. I've instructed that if it happens again, they're to take the phone and bring it here. So that's for your information. Number two, unless there's some request, I'm not going to address anything further about our conversation of yesterday at the close and later. And then, I don't know the answer to that. You could talk to the lieutenant when we get a chance. And then for the reasons stated in the brief, which was filed by Mr. Kraus, the motion for reconsideration on count 6 is denied. All right, anything else?
In other words, the gun charge is still
We
there.
were talking about exhibits that hadn't been moved that I think the parties are.
All right, so I'm going back to Ahmaud Arbery because
So,
they just finished with that. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
Yeah, but like it's starting to get ridiculous now. I understand the trial's going bad for some people, but come on, really?
Well, it's been so political. You who knows what and it's just like that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's go to page 24 of your transcript. And the roads get a little confusing here.
There's a good question though. If there's a video of the jury, would they want to replace the jury? I mean, I think at this point just finish the trial. They're already.
So when people are
They're almost done. So I would arrest the person. So I don't know what they're doing, but that's crazy. That's criminal. I'm surprised they didn't arrest that
Figured
person.
out that the roads make a loop and everything kind of comes back that way.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold up the map.
Yeah, and they didn't take the phone. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I'll bet they know who he is though. If the judge orders them to go, they can probably pick him up.
Yes, sir.
And so when you said it makes a loop, you know that up here above this map would be Highway 17, and there's Attila Drive and Zellwood, the only two roads into the neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
And
So
then
just to get back
there's-
everybody back in the Ahmaud Arbery
and
case,
the roads at issue in
the
case
prosecution
that you're
from
talking
this
to
witness
Mr. McMichael about
has essentially said, they're getting
Drive,
statements that were
Burford,
made right after
and
Ahmaud
Hall.
Arbery
Yes,
died.
Right? And when he was talking, even though he lives here on Still Drive, didn't even know the name of Holmes
Yes, sir.
himself. Did he?
Correct.
And it was Officer Sergeant Roberts who injected Holmes into
I believe it was Officer Robertson.
So,
They didn't say.
yes.
They didn't arrest the person. It looks like either. They took the phone, deleted the video, and went back.
So we're at page 24 then, and you were asked to read to the jury line 2, starting at line 2. This is where Mr. McMichael's telling you, are you with me?
Yes,
On the transcript. I jump in the back of the truck because I don't want to sit in that damn kid seat again, so I jump in the back of the truck. And even though he didn't say what road that was, you understood and testified a few minutes ago that you understood that to be Burford Road.
I believe he said that, yes, sir.
Okay. And then going down on that same page, you were asked to read that they were running down the dam road. I'm at line 7.
Mhm.
And
That's true.
in the meantime,
Yeah.
we're hollering.
I don't know.
I'm hollering.
Yeah, they need to get the
stop.
phone.
We want to talk to you.
They should just arrested that
And
person.
you understood.
Yeah,
that this
I'm-
portion is
Well,
at
because it,
Holmes
I mean,
Road or
if it was a public space, it's not illegal,
That
but,
occurred on Burford.
Burford. All right.
you know, if it's the
Next
jury,
paragraph beginning at line
Yeah.
10, and we get up next to him, and I said, "Stop, goddammit." See that part?
Yes, sir.
Now, you think that's also on Burford?
That's my understanding of it, yes, sir. There was never any mention of Zellwood, and earlier on, he told me that he turned around on Burford and stopped and began running back towards Holmes.
Well, here's what I want you to do, Officer Brandenburg. You can't read this part out loud under the rules, but if you would read to yourself the full paragraph that begins at line 10 and ends at line 17. Just take a moment and read that.
Mhm.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
So the line that you were asked to read, we get up next to him and I said, "Stop, goddammit." And then you had to stop there. When you read that in context, it appears.
Yeah,
to
this is
that
Arbery.
not-
This is
that he's
Ahmaud
talking
Arbery.
about the final encounter in the final seconds that's on video there at Holmes Road, almost to the intersection of Satilla Drive. Based on what he's describing
Yes,
has
sir.
happened in the rest of that paragraph,
Yes,
right? Okay, so the words "stop, goddammit," he says he uttered or spoke to Mr. Arbery while he's in the back of the pickup truck on Holmes Road near Satilla at the end of this encounter, right?
Somewhere on Holmes Road, yes, sir. That's my understanding.
Okay. And when he says that's what he said, have you had a chance to review the case beyond your own body cam and your own transcript, for
No, sir,
example?
that's had nothing to do with me. I haven't had any part of any further investigation. Once I left the scene, I was done with it.
Right, I understand that part. My question though is, in working the case, preparing for trial, coming here today, you have not looked at the video.
No,
what
sir.
we're all calling the video. You haven't looked at that.
I saw it when it first came out. Other than that, I have not seen it. I can't testify to any of that, so that's got nothing to do with me.
Gotcha. Just trying to
Like,
get what you.
don't
it
ask
does
me
have
no
to
more
do with you in
questions.
its proper context here. So when you watch that video, you saw Mr. McMichael, Greg McMichael, standing in the back of the pickup truck
Yes, sir.
with a phone to his ear.
I don't recall.
You don't recall
Yes,
that?
sir. I haven't seen that video. It's been like 20 something months.
And you didn't listen to the 911 call that he was engaged in at
No,
the
sir.
time?
And
So
but
last
the thing is,
question, you would
this
agree
isn't
with me
strange
that
because he's a
if
patrol officers
this quote we're talking
secure the
about right
scene,
here that
and
said
he
to
goes
you
and works his other area. They usually
is
call
what he
them over
thinks
just
he
in case they
said
need
to
help.
Ahmaud Arbery in the final seconds of their encounter. And he's saying it while he's on an open 911 call that's recording it, that the best,
Form of question, speculation.
Yeah, but
I'm not asking him to speculate anything.
you're
I haven't
giving
finished the
This
question.
district attorney is good at the objections, huh?
that's a wrong hypothetical to a lay witness.
It's not a hypothetical.
yeah, no, she ain't playing. This is a very different
Different
attorney than we're seeing on the. This is the prosecution, but it's still very different attorney on the than on the defense for the Rittenhouse.
That's the
Yeah.
question, but
Okay.
before you answer, let's go ahead and address what it is.
So he's Mr. McMichael's
See,
on
Nick,
the
she's keeping him
scene
on his
moments
toes.
after all of this has happened, being recorded.
She's
on
shaking
the
her
body
head too. She's
cam,
like, mm-mm.
telling you what he thinks he said, the actual words he said to Ahmaud Arbery, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what he's doing here.
Yes, sir.
And so my question to you is,
They just told for the Rittenhouse
a
jury thing. They just
recording of
told
what
him,
he
and
actually
that was
said
it.
would be
Don't
more
worry about it.
reliable
That's
than
what the
even
judge just told
his
him.
own words
I'm listening to it
you.
in the background.
Wouldn't you agree?
Objection. That's for the province of the jury to determine the reliability of anybody's statement. The other ones will judge the credibility.
Sustained on that.
Okay, well, we'll get to that part then. Thank you,
Damn.
Mr. Brandenburg.
You just gunning them down with objections, huh? He's got to sit down.
I think the defense attorney though is handling it well because he's just like
he doesn't get flustered.
Yeah, he doesn't get flustered, and he's just like, we'll get to it later. You know, I'll get that in later because it's legit, and you know, I'm not going to argue it now. Dismissive of it.
Co-counsel Laura Hogue. We represent Greg McMichael. And so my last question is, if Greg McMichael had said anything to you that day that is in any way materially different from what he told you the first, the second, and the third time y'all went through the story, you would have noted that in your report, wouldn't you?
I believe so. Again, that's more for our investigators to look through my body camera and then have further questioning.
But you wrote a report.
Yes, sir, I did.
It's about a page and a little more long.
Yes, sir.
You've seen it.
Yes, sir.
You've reviewed it.
Yes, sir.
And you didn't note in it any place where Greg McMichael's 3 times through the story differed in any way, did you?
I'd have to look at my report.
All right, let's look at it.
Yeah, no, I know for those of you who want to watch the Rittenhouse case,
Yes, sir.
listen, Nick is doing a fantastic job over there. You know, I would generally be over there with them talking about the Rittenhouse case, but I wanted to cover the Arbery case, right? I was covering the Rittenhouse and Arbery case, so I'm going back and forth. If you guys really want the Rittenhouse case, I totally understand it. But if I hear anything crazy going on over there, as I did earlier this morning, we're over there in Rittenhouse. But otherwise, you know, this is the case I want to cover. And this is the case most people are here to watch. So, but we'll be back and forth though. So if something big happens over there, it's not like I'm just going to sit here and just like, oh, you know, Rittenhouse, we're going to go over to Rittenhouse. Just so everybody understands what's happening here again. They're not showing the body cam footage.
To answer your question, this
because there are confrontation
No, sir,
clauses.
you did not.
I
What?
did not notate that he had any change in the story.
And if he had, you would have notated that, correct?
I should have, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So the reason now you're going to see
I'm Jason
3
Sheffield.
cross examinations.
We haven't talked yet, have we?
No, sir.
Okay. There's a part that you were just asked about by Mr. Hogue, previously by the state, about those statements, stop, goddammit. And you were just kind of going through that a moment ago.
Right.
One thing that you haven't noted yet, and you haven't been asked to help clarify that issue, is the following. You understand at some point you're here on Burford, and there's an interaction that takes place here on Burford.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's why I do what I do, baby.
Where Greg says he gets out of the truck, gets down and climbs in the back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But in your report there, or in the transcript that you've got, Greg actually says to you that they haul ass around. You recall that?
Yes, sir. I believe in context they said that he turned back towards Holmes and they came around to head him off.
Yeah. So you were told that day that they actually hauled ass.
It doesn't get across the
around
confrontation
and came
clause
out this
issue
way.
though.
Yes.
And that kind
You
of
got witnesses who are testifying in that
the
video,
Burford
so you
and the
got they have to be able to
Holmes
confront
issue.
them.
Because Greg was telling you, we hauled ass around and came out this way.
Right after the interaction on Burford. Yes, sir.
Right. And then that helps the jury understand that then that last interaction of yelling, stop, goddammit, that happens on Holmes.
That's my understanding.
Okay, very good.
I think this is good. I think they're painting Ahmaud as
Yeah,
a
you also had
neighborhood
a
prowler
conversation
that everybody was
with
trying to
Officer
catch.
Minshew
I think they're
that
doing a
day.
very good
Do
job
you
of that.
recall speaking with him a little bit toward the end of the day?
I don't recall.
You don't recall speaking with him? Okay.
You've been demonetized yet for this?
Oh no, I haven't even turned on monetization because the monetization thing is yesterday they hit me hard with the whole destroyed it. Someone says we're blasting him. Let me do this. Let me try to turn down because I did the. It's because some of them are speaking into mics, some of them are not speaking into mics, and when we talk, it blasts them. I'm just trying to turn down our audio, see what happens. Let me get us down to about 40%. Maybe that might help.
All right, so do you recognize this as the start of your body cam video?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're walking up here over to the side grass Is that Officer Caitlin Roberts walking in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you and Officer Roberts have a conversation that because you were back with the department that you were going to kind of get involved in this case a little bit and work the case a little bit?
Yes, sir. In fact, she told me that it was going to be my case, the whole initial report and everything. Yes, sir.
The whole thing was going to be your case?
Yes, sir.
Beyond what you did?
No, sir. Like I was going to do the initial report.
See, a lot of
and then
people
the
don't
other
really
people who were on
understand
scene
when
would
the
do
cop who's
something
on the
else.
scene, they just write down the facts when
That
they
you were gonna
the
be
first
the lead
impression
officer
facts,
on the case?
and it's usually a
Did that pan
detective
out?
that comes
That you
back
were
and
the
does
lead
all the
officer on
follow-up
the
work.
case?
So
More or less,
that's why this
for the
guy's like, I
initial,
wrote the
yes, sir.
report, and
The
that's it.
initial
I'm done.
report.
I don't really. I go back to patrolling the neighborhood I patrol. I wasn't
Sounds
patrolling
like
this neighborhood.
Correct.
Correct.
And that officer that you're passing right there, that's Officer Minshew.
On the left, yes, sir.
On the left, and he's finishing up, tying up the crime scene.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now, at this point, if you had already been told that Travis McMichael was over here, or you don't know who this
I
gentleman is?
have no
at this
idea who
point?
that gentleman is.
Okay. And you're just sort of following Officer Roberts at this point?
Yes, sir. We're both walking onto the scene.
Do you know that she's been told something about this gentleman?
I have no idea.
Morning.
Right. Okay.
I know. Just breathe, okay?
And she's sort of responding to him saying, I know, just breathe, kind of just calm down.
Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay, one moment.
So I'm trying to figure out where he's going with this because they want.
For you to clean up with, all right, Chris? Okay. We gotta take some pictures of you first.
Do whatever you
Yes, we gotta take some photos and then we'll get something from you, all right?
They're trying to show that he was
At this point,
upset.
she's telling him, we need to
He
take some
was
pictures
sad,
of you. We need
you
to
know.
kind of process some
He-
things. And his response is,
You know,
just
this
do
wasn't
whatever
something
you
he
have to
wanted to do.
do. So it's,
You know, this is not somebody who's out
okay, it's fair to
who's
say
being made
he's-
out to be. I'm
from
hunting
your
someone down to
experience
kill
with
them.
him,
This is
maybe
someone
very
who's like, my
limited.
God, I
He's
made a
being
mistake. You know,
cooperative.
this happened. I didn't even make a mistake. You
Yes,
know, this
I mean-
happened.
Yeah,
I'm
Yes.
regretful.
Yeah, he's
you know,
not
I'm complying.
trying
Listen,
to leave the scene to your knowledge or to tamper
Not-
with any kind of evidence to your knowledge.
Not in 10 seconds.
That's their mic.
Not
The clicking
intentional.
noise is
And then
their
at that
mic. Their
point,
mics
you
are having
move off
problems.
And you go do something else.
Correct.
Okay.
if I was the defense, I'd be doing the same thing. though. I think this is good. Show my client, you know, he was helpful to police, right? This is not somebody who's just running away, who thought he just
transcript
killed somebody. This is somebody
page
who, well,
39.
not thought he just murdered someone. This is someone who feels, you know, they had no choice.
And maybe even before that on page 38, maybe, does this refresh
I was
your
thinking the same
memory
thing.
about having a conversation with Officer Minshew?
Minshew was the first officer on the scene, and he had some conversations too that were very incriminating, but let's see what happens.
You can look at the bottom of 38 and kind of go into the top of 39.
This is a good point. Unlike Rittenhouse, we have video of Arbery. Yes, but also unlike Rittenhouse was chased. And this time Arbery was chased. So, and Rittenhouse was chased and confronted. This time Arbery is chased and confronted. So if you chase the person, usually the person who's chasing the other person, those are what they call the aggressor. So you're right. If you chase someone down and they grab your gun, if you chase someone down with a gun and they grab your gun and you shoot and kill them, that doesn't excuse you from murder, right?
Okay.
So the
People
goal
should
of
like.
having
I
you
think
read was
I
just
thought
to see
that
if
would
it
be like a
refreshed
clear
your memory
point.
that you had a conversation with Officer Minshew.
Roughly, yes, sir.
Okay. So as the officer who's going to come on the scene and write the initial report, you are keen to try to get
An
an
Alfred
understanding
plea
of
that's
what in the world
that's
has
a
happened.
no contest.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Okay. And that includes, who are these two gentlemen that we're seeing here on the side of the road.
I know some
Who is the
jurisdictions don't allow you
individual lying in the
to
road?
make those type of
Correct.
plays.
And so
You're not saying you're not guilty, but you're saying the charges are, it's just so crazy against you that you're not saying you're guilty, just charge, just sentence me.
There's no way you could
be
contest it,
accurate
so
as
you're
you can.
Yeah.
without pleading.
Yes,
guilty,
sir.
you're
Okay.
not fighting it.
So one of
But
the
you're not
things that
admitting
you
guilt.
were
You're just saying
discussing with Officer
I can't
Minshew
fight it.
was that he was essentially the first officer to
But
arrive on the
it's
scene.
Yes, sir.
basically
And
the
how
same for
close he
all
was
intents and
to the
purposes, by
scene
the,
when the
as
shooting
if you've
took
been
place.
convicted.
Yes,
Is that right? Most
And
jurisdictions.
so part
Yeah.
of he was explaining to you, you can sort
And there's
of
enough
see it
evidence
as you're
with-
reading it, but he's
to-
kind
yeah.
of explaining to you where
Yeah.
he
At this point in time, asked and answered, and Minshew's already been asked about this topic. Inappropriate to ask this witness about this topic.
It's not. It's additional evidence that is corroborative of the prior testimony to the state. The state has challenged that testimony. I'm seeking to corroborate it.
I would overrule
It's
it.
overruled. Good.
But he was standing there.
That's
at
how
that
you
time,
call
kind
it,
of
baby.
explaining
I would
to you where
overrule
he
it.
was when he heard the shots, right?
Right.
Talking about just being just on the other side of some bushes,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, sir.
And then boom, he comes around that bush and now he sees the whole scene laid out like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also speaking with you about the information that he had gathered a little bit about Mr. Arbery and his involvement in the neighborhood,
Okay.
right?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Okay. And how the McMichaels or how these gentlemen were involved with the issue dealing with Mr. Arbery in the neighborhood, being in the neighborhood several times, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's, I was told that by Mr. McMichael as well.
That's right. And this is just all part of your data gathering,
Mhm.
right? Okay, very good. One moment, please. I don't have anything for it. There may be one more turn. No questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So the last defense attorney had no questions. So what do we get from this witness? McMichael's made some statements. Some of them were damning, but some of them were good for McMichael's. The fact that they thought he might have had a gun, the fact that he pulled his arm from after you shot him, he pulled his arm out to make sure he didn't have a gun. And they asked him, why'd you pull his arm out? I thought he may be armed, so I just wanted to make sure. That goes a long way to
All right, so
your
first off, let's
self-defense
talk
issue here.
About
But do you have the right
your
to self-defense?
report.
They're going to have to get into that too.
All right, so your field training officer on your second day back at work while you have a head cold tells you you're going to be the lead on this case.
Yes, sir. Or, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and has you write up a report.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So how many pages is it?
Page and some change, maybe.
Okay, so this is a homicide case. Got 3 people involved. Got a bunch of officers on the scene, and your report's a page and a little paragraph.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is this really just a summary, kind of what Greg McMichael told you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and the transcript that you have right there states Exhibit 189A for 47 pages?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
7-page
You weren't the
summary
only one
versus
body cam,
47-page
No,
report.
ma'am.
All right. Did you review anybody else's body cam?
I don't recall reviewing anybody else's body cam. No, ma'am.
Did you interview the CID detectives?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So this really was just a report kind of about what you did with regard to Greg McMichael.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you are interviewing Greg McMichael right here, and you see this,
Mhm.
Travis is right there. At this point in time, did you know that Greg McMichael had already gone up to Travis and told him, you had no choice, you had no choice?
I still, to this day, didn't know that. No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much Greg McMichael told his son?
I'm going to be that was a good. All right. One thing, the reason why I stopped it is that the answer, when she questioned him, the answer didn't matter. Were you there when were you there when what was the exact question? I'm gonna rewind it back. But listen to the question. And he says, no, I didn't. But it's like, okay, but it's the question that she wanted to get in. The answer she didn't care about. Listen to this.
To this day, didn't know that.
And told him right there. At this point in time, did you know that Greg McMichael had already gone up to Travis and told him, you had no choice, you had no choice?
That's what she wants the jury to hear. Did you hear that? Did you know that when Greg McMichael went up to Travis McMichael and said, you had no choice, you had no choice? Now, obviously, he's like, I don't know nothing about that, but she said it just so the jury can hear it. And because the answer didn't matter. It was the fact that they just said it. Powerful stuff.
I still, to this day, didn't know that, no ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much Greg McMichael told his son at this point in time when you go to talk to him?
No ma'am.
All right. Do you know who else Greg McMichael has gone up and talked to at the point he's about to be interviewed by you?
No ma'am.
All right. So at the point he's being interviewed by you, did he mention he'd spoken with Diego Perez already?
No ma'am.
Did he mention he'd already talked to William Rodney Bryan already?
No ma'am.
Okay. So he didn't bother to tell you who he had spoken to at the scene about this before you ever interviewed him.
No ma'am.
And at the point you're interviewing him, his son has shot and killed somebody, right?
Yes ma'am.
And that body's laying 20 to 30 feet away, right?
Yes ma'am.
All right. And he's animated, right?
Yes ma'am.
These are a lot of direct questions, though. These aren't. I mean, these are a lot of
And I think with
A lot of leading
regard
questions.
to the Zellwood situation, he said what exactly did he say about how they got over to Holmes?
He said that he saw him running down Satilla Drive and continued straight onto Burford. They followed him onto Burford. He turned around and ran back towards Holmes, and they continued around and met him on Holmes.
I think you said that their words were, they went to head him off.
Yes ma'am.
they went to head him off. This prosecutor's no joke.
Yeah.
But you just got all that in, right? He didn't tell you talked to all these other people, right? The report, you did a 7-page report, but you got a 46-page transcript from the body cam. So she's really trying to she took all that cross-examination and just kind of flushed it out.
I asked you about page 6. Okay, so I'm gonna take you back to page 6. Lines 6 through 8. All right, do you remember Mr. Hogue asking you about this? This
Yes, ma'am.
guy who we've seen on video numerous times,
Okay.
breaking into these other
Hold
houses,
on.
he comes hauling gas down the street.
Gotta
right?
stop
ma'am.
this.
Okay.
We gotta
So
go
at
back
this
to
time, when he
Rittenhouse.
first starts talking to you, this is
We got a
Thursday,
high
he's on
res
video numerous times
FBI
breaking into these
thing
other
of the
houses.
shooting.
Did Greg Michael tell you which
Oh.
houses?
No ma'am.
Did he tell you
Gotta
what
go
houses
back
go
to
to?
Rittenhouse
Did he tell you any
immediately.
hard evidence that
All right,
Mr.
so I'm
Arbery was the one
pausing
breaking
this.
into?
Damn. All right, so here we go. Gotta set this back up for you guys. Okay, in the Rittenhouse trial, remember they had the high def FBI photo footage that they lost. They've recovered it, and now they have it, and they're going on the stand. So let's now we'll talk about probable cause when we come back to here. Again, I told you guys we're going bouncing back and forth. Back to Rittenhouse. Let's look at this drone footage. Now, I think the most important part of this drone footage that we're about to see in the Rittenhouse case. This is getting interesting, yeah. But I told you, we're moving back and forth, baby. So the one thing about the Rittenhouse drone footage I want to make sure is that yesterday, the cop on the stand yesterday testified that Rittenhouse, that from his perspective, Rittenhouse was about 10 feet away from Rosenbaum, the first person he shot, when he shot him. Here is the drone footage. So now we'll see. Was he 10 feet away or was he 10 inches away? Before I let it play out, let me put a poll in the chat. We're going right to the I don't have it up. We're going right to the poll in the chat. Now forget about the poll. Let's just play it because I can't find it. All right.
The only difference being, again, is that it is slowed down by 50%.
So this is slow down. So now
I'd like to move
was
to 86
Rosenbaum.
Play
So this
for
is
the jury.
Rosenbaum chasing Kyle. Was he 10 feet away or was he 2 feet away? And that's McGinnis right here. And Kyle runs around. Remember yesterday we heard 10 feet. Kyle was 10 feet away. Video slowed down for 50%. It's like, why are we even watching this case anymore, right? Like this, how can this not be over?
Yeah.
We just saw what happened here. I'll even, how is this case not over? He literally, you see the lunge.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Well, this was after the shot was fired in the air, too. So he's got reason to believe that somebody's shooting at him.
Good morning.
And the guy was right on top of him.
The exhibits we've just shown the jury 81.
I thought he said 10 feet
82,
away. I thought he was
83,
like 10 feet away. He
84,
looked at
85,
it.
and 86. correct me if I'm wrong, but you began working on putting them together on Friday.
I began working on them on Sunday.
Okay. When did the crime lab receive them?
The crime lab received that as a submittal on Sunday.
Okay. And who submitted them to you?
It was ADA Jim Cross.
Okay. And you're familiar with the fact that we didn't receive these videos until Friday of last week?
I was informed that that was the circumstance, yes.
Okay. And when you do this, you're not adding color, correct?
That is correct. I'm not adding color.
You're not adding pixels.
With regards to enlargement, there is interpolation, and so pixels are added to that.
Okay. How is the color's not changed?
Color is not changed.
So if you blow something up 10%, what does that do for the pixel number?
The pixels will increase by interpolation of that area.
Okay. And what was the resolution of the source video for 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, and is it 86?
I would need to refer to my notes in order to be able to confirm that.
Please do, sir.
I don't see how that. I'm going back. We're going to go back to Arbery. I don't see how to have, but I think we're there. I'm looking at that. Like
The resolution for that file, it was
He's right on top of him.
1920 by 844.
And in layman's terms, what is that?
That's 1,920 pixels by 844 pixels.
And that's kind of tells you the clarity. The more pixels, the clearer it is.
The more pixels, the higher resolution. There's more information present.
Okay. And when, if you have to look at your notes, that's fine. Videos are done at certain speeds. So certain videos, whether it's a phone or whether it's a camera, they do it by frames per second.
That is correct.
The more frames per second, the clearer it is.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. This one, how many frames per second, sir?
This video is 30 frames per second.
Well, they're going back to the frames for a second. I want to go back. I'm just going to go back and look at the actual video one more time because that doesn't. Let's look at this.
Steve, let to
Here we go.
play it for the jury.
No objection.
Steve.
So let's play this again. I'm going to stop it. All right. So Kyle is running. Them do it frame by frame. There is Rosenbaum with the mat with the shirt over him. Kyle is running. He turns. There is his arms are out. It looks like his arms are out. And then Kyle, bang, bang, bang. And he almost falls on top of Kyle. All right, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean,
wasting my time on
essentially point blank.
Yeah, I'm not wasting my time on that. I'm not wasting my time on it. What did they play this for? What did they play this for? This is like they're being ridiculous now. Like, come on, what are you? That's
Why would the prosecution? I mean, the prosecution's
he's literally on
they're
top
the
of the kid,
wrong
poor
side.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on top of the guy.
Well,
Yeah,
and
this
there's
is-
no way he can maneuver. I mean, it looks like he could, if he didn't have the rifle with him, he could probably squeeze through. Just like suck in his gut, maybe squeeze through two of the cars there and get. I'd have a hard time getting through. I wouldn't be able to do it running, and I certainly
He
wouldn't
ran
be able
on
to do it with the rifle.
Yeah, he's right on top of him. Yeah.
That's-
We're going back to Arbery. Yeah. It seems like the prosecution that's a great. If I was the defense, I'd be like, yeah, you see, he was right on top of him. I don't know.
I think the defense is. I think I figured out what the defense is going to do. And I sent you some stuff on Discord. So when you get a moment, if the defense even comes up, the defense may not come up, but I think they've got something explosive.
No, they're crossing him now. So, but
No,
We'll
no.
go back to
I mean,
Arbery.
just
I said there was a video
if
at one point, but at this point, I don't believe.
well, this is the Ahmaud Arbery
Let's go
trial.
ahead and move forward.
Second
Case
cop on the
17.
scene, the guy who wrote the report.
Sorry, you said 17?
I did say page 17. So now I'm going to direct your attention specifically to line 14. On numerous occasions, the guy has broken into a house over here, and they've got him on video. Okay, so now we've gone from numerous houses. He's on lots of videos to numerous occasions. The guy has broken into a house over here. Just says a house, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. and that's on 17. And then we go to page 18,
Broken in numerous houses.
and now they got him on video going into this house 2 or 3 times. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we've gone from breaking into all these houses to the one house, and now it's, anyway, they got him on video going into this house 2 or 3 times. So we're down now to 2 or 3 times. Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So 2 or 3 times. So we use all these houses now 2 or 3 times.
Now, he does go on page 26 to say he's the one breaking into all these houses out here. All
Yeah.
right? Page 26.
I don't know if I'd allow that video in. It's too late. They just got it on Sunday and all that. I don't
10
know.
and 11.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, do you ever tell you which house?
Well, if the
ma'am.
defense
Did he
doesn't
tell you
object,
where he got this information from?
No, ma'am.
Did he tell you the victims of any of these break-ins?
One guy was a banker, was as far as we got into it.
Okay. Now, the banker, was this the banker from Alma?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is he the one with the construction site?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he says the guy from the construction site is the banker from Alma.
Yes, ma'am.
And now I want to take you to page 30. I want to get real specific about page 30 for a second. Okay. So we were talking about our interruptions and everything, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So Christy Rozier, who's she?
She is the county coroner, one of the county coroners.
And she had shown up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, who's Christy Rozier trying to talk to?
She's trying to talk to me.
She's trying to talk to you.
Yes, ma'am.
She's trying to talk to other law enforcement officers?
No, ma'am.
Just you.
Not that I recall. Yes, ma'am. Only me.
Okay. And I think you said that Greg Michael inserted himself in the conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Was she trying to talk to Greg Michael?
No, ma'am.
Right. And so he came up and starts trying to tell her what went on.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's when he starts telling her on page 30, well, he makes frequent trips to the neighborhood, gets caught on video camera like every 3rd or 4th night, breaking into places. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a good
Now,
fact for the
you,
defense.
as the first responding officer, did you ever find out any of this video footage where he's breaking in every 3rd or 4th night?
Me personally, I have not seen anything. No, ma'am.
Oh, wow. Well, it's in the scope of course because remember they were asking them about these particular points.
Is this you trying to take down that information while he's talking to that unknown person who walks up?
It appears so. Yes, ma'am.
Who's that?
This is Miss Rozier.
Yeah, some states allow it. Some states allow it.
And who's she trying to talk to?
That's just the Chauvin case they did.
And is at this point, who comes up and starts inserting himself into this conversation?
Mr. McMichael. Mr. Greg McMichael.
Notice they can't play the audio
Yes, ma'am.
because remember they can't
Those are
confront all
fire
those
units,
witnesses.
Clinton County Fire units.
So she's just trying to show how many people heard McMichael say all this stuff and why he was saying it and who he's saying it to. I don't know what they're doing. They're probably just saying we
At that
just
point, did anybody
submitted
tell
enough
Mr. McMichael to back off,
for
step
something,
away?
I don't know.
Not
The
that I
coroners?
recall. No, ma'am.
Okay, so nobody's telling him this is none of your business. We need to do our business now. You need to go away.
No,
We got the
not that I
coroner
recall,
on,
ma'am.
but
Why not?
we know how they died. So
I don't have a good answer for you.
yeah, maybe just drag it as long as possible.
All right, and specifically, I'm going to take you to page 24. We've been talking about this.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So at this point, Greg McMichael's telling you, I jump in the back of the truck because I don't want to sit in the damn kid seat again. So I jump in the back of the truck and he's running down that damn road, and that's Burford.
Yes, ma'am. My understanding.
Asked and answered.
Okay.
See, the defense should be saying
That's when
asked and
he's
answered.
hollering, stop, stop. We want to talk to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he
Asked and
immediately
answered.
says, and we get up next to him and I said, stop, God damn it, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the defense counsel asked you about.
Yes, ma'am.
Between those two sentences, did he ever say, we went up around Zellwood, we came down Holmes Drive, we passed Mr. Arbery, and then we stopped right here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. He actually says that he gets up next to him.
Yes, ma'am.
If you get up next to somebody, does that imply that you're driving your car?
To me, it would.
Okay. So the impression he left you with is we got up next to him in the car.
That was my understanding. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It doesn't say Mr. Arbery got up next to our car, does it?
It does not.
Okay, so you have no idea how many times he yelled, "Stop, goddammit," at Mr. Arbery.
I do not.
And I just want to be really, really clear on page 21 at the bottom. All right. When Mr. McMichael says, I haul ass back into the house, I haul ass into my bedroom to get my .357 Magnum, I don't take any chances, it's because he doesn't know if this guy's armed.
That was my understanding.
Okay, so he knowingly went after someone he believed was armed with his own gun.
That was my understanding. Yes, ma'am.
That's a good fact for the defense, though. He was going after somebody he believed was armed with a gun.
I'll pass the witness back.
Students back in order. Mr. Hope.
Why would you end on that? Ponytail is back.
He's going to get.
I like
loaded.
Ponytail.
Two areas, Officer Brandenburg, that have just been brought back up on redirect. When the state was just now asking you about all these things, whether Greg McMichael volunteered them to you, like which houses, who lives in them, how did you learn about these break-ins?
I'll check it out.
Right, and you said, no, he didn't volunteer those details to you, right?
He did not volunteer who lived in them or how he got the information. No, sir.
You didn't ask him.
They're not going
Did
to
you?
No, sir. Those kind of follow-up questions are for our investigative division.
All right, that's not your job.
That's not what I said.
That's not what you were there to do.
I was there to get an initial statement and then turn the scene over to our investigative division.
Okay, who would do the questioning about which houses and who lives in them?
Yes, sir. Their job is to get more detailed information.
Sure.
Smart by the defense attorney.
Okay,
This wasn't
then go
even,
back
you know,
to
she's
page
talking about all the
24.
stuff that wasn't even your
We
job,
went
right?
through that, but let's go back
Yeah.
to it.
Wasn't my job.
Line 10.
So why is she asking you about it?
First, up above, we agreed that the jumping in the back of the truck because he doesn't want to sit in the car seat happened on Burford,
Yes, sir.
right?
That was my understanding.
And then the last statement, he said to Mr. Arbery, "Stop, goddammit. I had you read silently the rest of that paragraph that that's in, right?"
Yes, sir.
And we agreed, did we not, that at that point, it appears he's describing to you what he said to Mr. Arbery,
He never said where it took place.
right? But you agreed with me, we're talking about Holmes Road,
It could have been on Holmes. It may not have been. He didn't clarify.
okay?
At the time, I didn't ask.
So earlier, though, when we agreed that based on the context of this whole statement, that you can't read to the jury, but you read to yourself, you agreed with me, he's talking about Holmes Road.
It could have happened on Holmes Road. It may have happened on Burford. He doesn't say. I can't attest to either one.
All right.
Never clarified.
So when we agreed earlier, you're now backing off that?
Yeah, he's that badgering
So we
him. He's
don't
like, yeah, I
agree now
can't.
that this is on Holmes Road. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it was never clarified as to where it happened. It may have happened on Holmes Road. It could have happened on Burford. I don't know.
You don't know.
No, sir.
He's wrestling with this witness. They got the coroner on.
Thank you.
They have the coroner on the Rittenhouse
You may sit
trial.
down.
And it's like,
As with other witness, you're released
I
today,
don't
but
think
you
there's going
remain
to be much
subject to recall.
surprising there.
Thank you.
all right. So what do we get from this witness? We got McMichael said a whole bunch of bad stuff about, but he also believed that he had a gun.
All right,
We
ladies and
also
gentlemen,
got the
we're gonna
whole.
take a 15-minute recess and then continue with the presentation of evidence in this case. Thank you.
All right, for the jury.
So I think we got some good stuff out of this witness for both sides, right? For both sides. I think on the prosecution side, the fact that they didn't know what the hell they were arresting him for, right? They didn't know any of the other, well, they didn't know anything, right? They only saw him running down. They also had those statements from McMichael's, right? What were you arresting him for? What was going on? Why was this happening? And the whole, well, I thought he was been around the neighborhood. He's burglared a couple of places. I think those were good for the defense. I also think for the defense, it was good to get in the fact that the junior McMichaels, when he shot Arbery, he removed his arm from under him so he could see if he had a weapon. I think that's important if you're talking about self-defense, because really, what did the defendant think at that moment? Did he, but was his belief reasonable? Was it reasonable for him to believe that Arbery could have had a gun? So that's what the jury's going to have to go. The guys running down the street, they had that interaction. He said they had the interaction before where Arbery put his hand under his shirt. He thought he might be armed. and that's why he was scared, and that's why they got weapons. So today has actually been a very interesting back and forth between both sides. I don't know which side I would call it for, but I think right now the state's case is still holding up. This is not like the Rittenhouse case, right? The Rittenhouse case is just a bomb, right? It's just, but the state's case is holding up.
Well,
Go ahead.
They did seem to change a little bit on. So what he had said was that he was getting the gun just in case, take no chances. But then later, well, he thought he might have had a gun, or even elevated that he thought he could be armed. And I think that's a slightly different, that's a different level, and they seem to escalate, just how seriously he thought. What was it, just in case, or was it he actually thought he could be armed in this situation? Was he chasing someone he thought was armed? Those are several different things. But I also thought that oh dear Lord, I did lose my train of. It is too early, Nate.
That's all right.
It is too. You need to call.
Dave Rooker with $5 said, "Get rich so you can dye your hair the way you want." Right, Nate? Yeah, I'm trying to. Dave Rucker, get rich so you can do your hair the way you want. Yes.
Oh,
I'm hoping I read that right. Hold on. Get rich so you can do your hair the way you want. Right, Nate? Yes. Amen to that.
I did like the footage of the defendant when he was sitting there and he was just kind of, I don't want to say defeated. It almost looked like a shell shock, post-traumatic stress. He's just sitting there kind of like, just do what you want to do. You want to cooperate.
But just imagine how bad. Well, that was also very good footage. I think that worked for the defense in this case, right? That number one, he wasn't running. This is not like, because that's what they were making. The prosecution in the Arbery case was making that point, like, he's running away. He's running free. They're trying to make it seem like he's running from getting caught. He didn't get arrested that night. Like, all those things were interesting, right? But I think in this case, you don't have that, right? You have the defendant sad, right? Oh my God, I just shot a man, right? Because you're going to hear that testimony where he says, oh my God, I just shot a man. I'm not happy. He looks distressed. The things that he did are consistent with what he was saying, what his beliefs are. And that's what I think the prosecution has to overcome. If I believe someone has a gun, right, I would do the same thing that this guy did in terms of when he falls on his hands. I want to move his hand out so I can see if he had a gun. That's consistent with that belief. And that's what I think. And so when evaluating this, some of those good facts are good, but now how reasonable was it for him to even believe he had a gun in the first place, right? Because he's running around, he's never really had a gun before, but then he's saying, well, before he pretended to have a gun. So I believed he might have still had one today. So, it's a little, I still think we still have a little mess here, but we'll see how the prosecution kind of narrows it down, because that's their job. They got to narrow it down to either make those facts irrelevant overall, or if they don't, then I think the defendant now has a shot, right? The defendant now has a shot to get off. Let's go back to the Rittenhouse trial while this is on this little break and see what's going on there. Rittenhouse. I hate the fact that they don't let you have more than one tab open at a time, because they should have so I can just click back and forth. So this is a coroner they got up.
Yes. But it was
On
still
Rittenhouse.
inside of Mr. Huber.
Yes, this bullet was underneath the skin, right underneath that bruise.
If not already done, I'd like to move this into evidence. The next exhibit, please. This is State's Exhibit 89. Do you recognize this, sir?
Yes, this is another photo of his. You can see his torso and his lower part of his face to the left of the photo. The white things on his body are defibrillator pads. So this is from resuscitation. Again, you can see the two wounds that we just showed. You can see the purple injury to his right shoulder, and you can see the red area of hemorrhage surrounding the.
This is the skateboard guy,
which is
where he was shot under his rib.
Again, it's covered by a patch that's meant to contain hemorrhage.
Now, the reason why you put
Doctor,
these
if
witnesses
could,
on, because
could
you got to prove
please,
your case.
that
So
screen, to the best of your knowledge, trace what the path of the bullet would have been given those two injuries?
Sure.
for those of you who joined, we're watching the Kyle Rittenhouse case, we were at the Ahmaud Arbery case, which we are focused on. Our
So it would
focus
have
today is
entered,
Ahmaud
by
Arbery,
on his
but we're
left
going back and
chest
forth.
and
So
then
here is
traveled,
Kyle Rittenhouse. So we're looking
to
to see what's
his
going on
right
here.
shoulder. That's accurate? You may have a seat. Thank you, doctor. That's Exhibit 89 into evidence. Now I'd like to move on to Mr. Rosenbaum. I believe you also did the autopsy as Mr. Rosenbaum.
This is
Yes,
going to
I
be
did.
good
Do you
because I want to see what
recall
happened with
if these
Rosenbaum.
came
Remember,
in
he
at
was
the
shot in the
same
back.
time, or if you did one first, or do you have any recollection of that?
I don't have a recollection of that. Mr. Rosenbaum, his examination was performed the following day. It was performed on August 27th of 2020.
And did you do the same procedure that you described, Mr. Huber, in terms of taking photographs and initial appearances, and then cleaning, and then doing a further examination?
Same procedure.
Is there anything different about how Mr. Rosenbaum came to you or appeared to you?
When Mr. Rosenbaum came to the office, his clothing had been removed. He had been to the hospital and his clothing had been removed. Whereas Mr. Huber came with his clothing still on. But aside from that, I don't think. And then the other thing was that Mr. Rosenbaum came with the hands covered by paper bags to protect possible evidence. But other than those things, I think that I don't think there was anything else.
So ostensibly, that
What did
powder
you
burns on.
notice about Mr. Rosenbaum?
Mr. Rosenbaum had several injuries that were related to gunshot wounds. That's what I noticed initially, yes.
So if he's reaching for the rifle when it fires,
X-rays
he may have
on
powder
burning
burns on the
imaging on
hands. So
Mr.
they put
Huber,
plastic-
Mr.
they put the
Rosenbaum?
paper bags
Yes,
on the
X-rays
hands,
are
tie them
taken
off so that
prior
it,
to the autopsy examination.
don't wipe the powder
That
burns
allows
off by
us
accident.
to look for skeletal injuries as well as to locate any projectiles or projectile fragments, bullets or bullet fragments.
Were you able to come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty on what caused the death of Mr. Rosenbaum?
Yes.
What was that?
Mr. Rosenbaum died from multiple gunshot wounds.
And in his physical examination, was there anything of note that would have led to a questioning or a addition to that cause of death?
No.
Do you know how many gunshot
Hey, Nick,
wounds Mr.
I'm going to have
that you
to
found on
run
Mr.
real
Rosenbaum?
quick because my kid got sick in
Mr.
school, so I got to
Rosenbaum
pick
has
her up.
a number of
I'll leave it.
injuries.
I'm going to leave the
There
feed
are,
up.
2 injuries.
If you
in
want to
which,
come back, I'll be
the
back in maybe
bullet
30
entered the
minutes.
body and
But
did not
for the
exit, so I
audience,
collected bullets from those
let me stop
injuries. There's a third injury.
I got to pick my kid up from school because she is not feeling well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the trial feed up, but I'm going to leave the trial feed for the Arbery trial up. So you guys can watch the Arbery trial here, and I'll leave the feed up. When I come back, I'll just jump back into this. So I should be back in maybe 30 to about 11:30, 11:45. I should be back because it doesn't take me that long. But if you guys want to continue to watch, you can watch the trial here, and I'll be back to. I think they should be going on lunch in about an hour anyway. So I'm going. Actually, let me do this. Let me put a poll in the chat to see which trial should I leave. Should I leave the Arbery trial, or should I leave the what's the other trial up there? Arbery
Rittenhouse.
or Rittenhouse. What do you think?
I actually think they're going to go Rittenhouse. I'm cool either way, but my guess is they're going to go Rittenhouse. They seem to. There've been some people talking about the Arbery and wanting you to stay there, but what I've seen more people have said, hey, I may have called that one wrong.
Arbery. All right, so I'm leaving up Arbery. Unless, it looks like the chat is Arbery. Nick is wrong. Okay, so Arbery's on Arbery just came back. So I'm going to Arbery. Nick, are you want to stay on? You want to stay on, or you going to?
I can stay on. For about 5 or 10 minutes if that's cool. I'll stay on. I'm happy to stay on for about 5 or 10 minutes.
No, well, because I'm going to go. I'm gonna go pick her up. So, all right, so you can go in, but I'm just gonna leave this feed up so people can continue to watch the Arbery trial, and then I'll be back to continue to give my commentary on it. So here's Arbery.
All right, we're back on. All the defendants present, represented by counsel.
All right, I'll be back,
I do
Nick.
want to make a clarification because the way Mr. Rubin, you joined that last motion made me think that maybe I was misunderstood. Sheriff isn't going and talking to the jury. What I've asked the bailiff to ensure is that the jury understands that if there are any issues with the court's instructions, that they send a note so that I can go ahead and see what the issue is and then bring it to counsel's attention. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that, because that the way it was couched was as if I was having the sheriff go and affirmatively go and speak with the panel. And that's just not what I'm talking about. It's the bailiff ensuring that they understand the court's instructions as we go through the trial, just so that if there is an issue, it's brought to my attention.
I understand, Your Honor. If I misspoke, I apologize.
There's a issue, a finer issue there.
Yeah.
We're waiting on Miss Bird. If she's not here in a minute or two, I'll go check on her.
Your Honor, here's the issue, if I can say this. It's based on a case that we had several years ago, Lindsay versus the state, where the court asked the jury bailiff to answer a question that the jury had. So, and I understand that's an extension, and that was a reversed case. So what we wanted to do is to follow the law as we saw as an extension of that, and to make sure that, and while we have no there's not gonna be any ill will, I don't want anything attributed to the sheriff's department or the bailiffs, but in our mind, there is a difference between the court asking the jurors, has there been any inadvertent or intentional contact, whatever, on your part, or your son just forwarded you a article and you thought, oh my goodness, I thought it was pictures of the grandkids. So that's why we believed it would be sounder for the court to do it. We understand the ruling, but I wanted to make sure you understood why we see the distinction between the two.
And just to be clear, if it is anything is brought to the bailiff's attention, it will come to me. Now, whether that, and I'll be clear about it. The way I've always functioned is anything comes to the bailiff is generally written down, and I know what it is, and we can mark it and discuss it. But that, as far as I'm concerned, anything that comes to the bailiff is brought to the court's attention, and if it's something we need to go ahead and discuss, we'll go ahead and discuss that. I'm just telling you that I want to make sure that the jury knows and understands that anything that needs to be brought to the court's attention with respect to the court's instructions is going to be done so. And we've spent a lot of time talking about it. I just, based on Mr. Rubin joining the motion, was concerned there'd been a misunderstanding about what the court was doing. And that's all. I understand the extension, and that's fine. We're on the record on it.
Would you put on the record for us what the court's instructions to the bailiff to say to the jury is?
I have no idea. Basically, let the jury know that if there are any issues having to do with the court's instructions, to let her know so that I can address them as quickly as I can with counsel. And maybe that last part of it is my reading into it, but that's effectively it.
And the bailiff's instructions from the court is to ask that of the jury each morning?
I haven't done it each morning, no, but to make sure that they were aware of it, particularly this morning, because this morning it was on my mind. But again, the court's given them instructions. They are adults. They understand they're under the umbrella of the court, and they are being instructed at least twice a day that there are specific instructions with contact. I have great faith in the ability of the individuals that are tasked with listening to this case, with their ability to comply with the court's instructions. Most people, once they hear from a superior court judge about particular things, are usually going to comply, particularly when you see that judge every day. So if I feel like I need to repeat it, maybe I'll just let y'all know that I've repeated it, but those are the instructions. All right, anything from the state before we continue?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from Travis McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from Greg McMichael?
No, Your Honor.
From Mr. Bryan?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Stay ready with this next witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, let's go get the panel.
All right, for the jury, please. Please be seated.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I understand we are ready to proceed with the evidence from the state.
At this time, the state will call Detectives Parker, Marcy.
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I did.
Go ahead, have a seat.
All right, Detective, please state your, oh, you can take your mask off. All right, please state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
My name is Parker Marcy. Marcy is my last.
All right, and Detective, how are you currently employed?
I'm an investigator at the Glenn County Police Department.
All right, and how long have you been in law enforcement total?
10 years.
So tell us, have you always been with Glenn County?
Yes, ma'am.
So starting back 10 years ago, did you go to the academy? Did you go to post? How'd you get trained?
I'm a post-certified officer. I went to Garden City, just north of Savannah, where Gypstick has a regional academy that I attended Bandit at.
All right, and that was 10 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so when you first started, what were your job duties and responsibilities with the Glenn County Police Department?
When I first started, I was a basic patrol officer, responding and answering calls for service and patrolling as well.
All right, and when did you become a detective?
In 2015.
All right, so now, how does it work at the Glenn County Police Department as far as detectives go? Is there specialties or you do everything? Tell the jury about that.
As far as case assignments, we pretty much work everything. We don't have specific, crimes against persons, crimes against property divisions. We do have some specialties for training that may cost a bit of money to get into versus just being assigned a different case. I do video work as well as cell phone forensics.
All right. So when you say video work, are you kind of like the person who will go to the gas station and pull down the video of the armed robbery kind of thing?
Yes, ma'am. And then we have some software to try and clean up some images as well as we can put video together.
All right. And then when you say you do cell phone stuff,
Yes, ma'am.
tell the jury what you mean by that.
We use primarily Cellbrite. It's a cell phone and overall now digital forensics company, and we can use their software and hardware to extract data from a multitude of devices, most of them being cell phones.
Right. And you've had training in both those things.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So tell the jury what the duties and responsibilities usually of a detective are. What do you generally do? Like, are you in a patrol car? Do you call 911 calls? What happens?
Typically, we work standard schedule, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. With the exception of some call days, we come in a little bit later and stay later in case something comes out in the evening. Rotating call days. So if an incident happens during the evening or the weekend that requires an investigator to come out that's not on duty, that on-call investigator will come out. Other than that, we work cases that we either respond to, are called out to, and until their conclusion, or we're assigned cases to work until their conclusion.
All right. So is it more the case that you're assigned a case once a 911 call has come in and a patrol officer has responded?
Typically, yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, you're dressed in a suit today. Is that what you normally wear as a detective with the Glenn County Police Department?
No, ma'am.
What do you usually wear as a detective?
Currently, we have black polo shirts with our badge of office on our left chest and CID on our sleeves with green 511 pants. That's a new uniform. We previously wore with the same patch and emblem, green polo shirt with tan 511 pants.
Based on that uniform, is it easy to identify you as a law enforcement officer?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you normally wear a body cam with that uniform?
Yes, ma'am.
So prior to February 23rd of 2020, had you ever worked a homicide case before?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Had you worked that as the lead or as an assist?
I've assisted in several, and I've been the lead on 3 cases.
How many other detectives are there in Glenn County that work homicides? I mean, normally on your shift, or
All 7 of us.
7 of you. Okay, so there's 7 detectives to handle all the detective work in Glenn County.
For Glenn County PD. I'm not sure how many investigators the city of Brunswick currently has. That's our criminal investigative division, and we're a little shorthanded right now, so that's why it's that number.
Gotcha. All right, so I'm going to direct your attention specifically to the neighborhood of Satilla Shores. Are you familiar with Satilla Shores here in Glenn County?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and it's in Glenn County.
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to February 2020, had you ever worked the Satilla Shores neighborhood as a patrol officer?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Right. But what years were those that you worked as a patrol officer in Satilla Shores?
Best recollection, 2013 to 15, and then some time, I believe in 2018, 19. Normally we ride the same zone, and that's all every exit 29 area, all that's considered one zone, but we'll move around on occasion.
So Baker 9.
Yes, ma'am, Baker 9.
All right. So prior to February of 2020, did you know William, who goes by Roddy Bryan?
No, ma'am.
And prior to February of 2020, did you know Travis McMichael, seated right over there?
No, ma'am.
All right. And prior to February of 2020, did you know Greg McMichael?
I knew of Mr. McMichael from his employment at the district attorney's office here.
Had you ever worked a case with him?
Not that I recall. The only time I recall interactions is passing him one time in the district attorney's office upstairs. I don't recall if we had any interactions if he ever came to our headquarters.
I'm going to direct your attention specifically to Sunday, February 23rd, 2020, approximately 1:15 in the afternoon. Were you working that day?
No, ma'am, I wasn't.
All right. So where were you?
I was at home.
All right. So what's your normal shift? I think as a detective, would you have been? It's a Sunday, so you're off.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you're at home. What happens?
Whenever a major incident happens, our dispatch center will push out administrative pages. It's a glorified text message, very basic information about something that's happened. I received one of those pages and called the sergeant, called Sergeant Oliver on duty and asked if she could do that.
And did she take you up on it?
Not initially.
Okay.
No.
Eventually?
Yeah, eventually she agreed to let me come in and help out.
Okay. Did you respond to the scene at Holmes and Satilla?
No, ma'am.
Where did you go?
I went straight to our headquarters.
And what were you wearing that day?
The green polo and tan 511 pants that I mentioned.
Right. So when you got to the Glenn County Police Department headquarters, what was the first task that you kind of handled at that time?
Mr. Travis McMichael arrived with an officer. He was still in the clothes that he was wearing that day and covered with blood, and had a request to get changed and cleaned up. I called down to the case agent, Investigator Lowry, and Sergeant Oliver was with me as well, and asked what's the status on that, if that's okay. They were good with him getting cleaned up, and so we took photographs of him as he was, and then collected the clothing he was wearing and allowed him to change.
Okay, so Travis McMichael came to headquarters. How did he get there?
Officer Lewis brought him up in his patrol car.
Okay. And where was Gregory Michael at this time?
As far as I didn't know at that time. He later showed up in our lobby.
Okay. And when he showed up in the lobby, how was he dressed?
He had on a light blue fishing polo, blue jeans, and sandals.
All right. And at the time Travis McMichael showed up, did Mr. Bryan show up at that time as well?
I don't recall when he showed up.
All right. So Travis McMichael, did you want to take some photos at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And were photos actually taken?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Prior to coming in today, did you have the opportunity to review State's Exhibit 237 through 265?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they fair and accurate pictures of Travis McMichael as he was as he came in and then later cleaned up?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At this time, the state would tender into evidence States 237 through 265.
No objection. No objection. No objection.
They're good.
So States 237. What's the state? What are we looking at here?
This is a bathroom just outside of the interview rooms, and this is Mr. Travis McMichael as he showed up.
And so we have, for instance, States 238. Were these a series of photos to capture his head to foot condition from the crime scene as he was transported then to Glenn County headquarters?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So 238 is his left arm.
Yes, ma'am.
239 his right arm.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We're looking at 240.
Boots and blue jeans from his knees.
241.
Waistline with his hands.
242.
Chest.
243.
Back of his head and shoulders.
244.
Same.
245.
More of his torso and his upper back.
246. What's the jury looking at here?
This is his right arm from the side.
247.
A little more turned to the front with his right arm and abdomen.
248.
His hands and forearms.
249.
More specific on his hands.
250.
His left hand and wrist.
251.
Right hand and wrist.
252.
the underside of his left hand and forearm.
253.
Same for his right hand and forearm.
All right, so at any point in time, did he ask for medical attention for any injury or broken skin?
He asked for an alcohol swab. That was it.
An alcohol swab?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But like, he didn't need stitches?
No, ma'am.
Didn't have any lumps or contusions or broken skin?
That's a leading question.
It's just saying it's leading. It's just asking if you just.
Did he have any major injuries that needed medical attention?
No, ma'am.
So then looking at 254, what's the jury looking at here?
This is the right side of Travis McMichael after being cleaned up and changed. Right side of his head.
255.
The back of his head.
And do you have any idea if that is still an abrasion or if that's leftover blood that just didn't come off?
I don't know, ma'am.
What are we looking at with 256?
The left side of his head.
What's the jury looking at in 257?
His face with the scale.
Does he have any bruises?
He's got a little reddening of the cheeks. Past that, none that I recall are standing out to me here now.
258. What's the jury looking at there?
Left side of his head with the scale.
260. What's the jury looking at there?
Right side of his head with the scale.
261. What's the jury looking at here?
His forearms.
And when we look here at 262, do you have any idea if that's an abrasion or if that's just blood that didn't come off?
I believe it was actually an abrasion.
Do you want me to bring it to you?
No, I can say I believe it was an abrasion. Yes, ma'am.
And then 263, what are we looking at there?
That's his right forearm. We took a picture of that with a discoloration. I don't remember if we actually noted a cut on that.
And 264,
That's his left forearm, flipped over, showing the bottom of his forearm.
all right, at this point in time, after taking these pictures, you said you encountered Greg McMichael in the lobby, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, what happened next?
Brought him back to our interview rooms and conducted an interview with him.
What time did you start your interview with Greg McMichael?
It's about 3:17 in the afternoon.
And was this interview captured on video?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you reviewed that video interview?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it fair and accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything deleted out of it? Anything added to it?
No, ma'am.
And have you reviewed the transcript of that interview with Greg McMichael?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that transcript a fair and accurate reproduction of the interview you conducted with Greg McMichael?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At this time, the state will tender into evidence States 225, the video of your interview with Greg McMichael at 3:17 p.m. on February 23rd, 2020, and States Exhibit 225A, the transcript, once again, into the record. And it won't go out with the jury because the jury will not be able to play it in the back.
No objection.
No objection.
No.
They're good.
So detective, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 225A. There you go, sir. All right, so what we're gonna do right now, Detective Marcy, is we're gonna go through what Greg McMichael said about what Greg McMichael did on February 23rd, 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so what I'm gonna do first off is I'm going to generally direct you to page 4. And I'm gonna talk to you here about whether he had known Mr. Bryan previously.
Yes, ma'am. He said he did. He said that he's known Robbie Bryan for years, that he's a mechanic who works at Southern Hardware now. He does a small gas engine repair and lives in the neighborhood, but he wasn't exactly sure where he lives in the neighborhood.
Right. And where did Greg McMichael tell you he lived?
At 230 Satilla Drive.
I'm going to direct your attention now to page 6. All right, now with regard to page 6, into I think page 7, I'm going to go ahead and have you specifically give a quote so that the jury has this verbatim, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So first off, let's take a look at page 6, lines 17 through 20. What did Greg McMichael say had happened that day, or what was he doing that day?
In quoting him, he said, "And I was out. I had my truck pulled up, backed up to the edge of my garage. I'm reupholstering the seat cushions on my boat. And I was using more or less the bed as a workbench."
Okay, so then continuing on that page, what did he say at lines 22 through 25?
Quote him again. "So I'm saying I'm spraying glue down and putting the padding down and all that kind of stuff. It was, I don't know exactly at what point of, the construction I was at that particular time. But I look up and I see this guy hauling ass."
All right, so at this point in time, what does he say about this guy hauling ass?
He said, I'll continue the quote, "I'm not talking about a jog. I'm talking about a haul ass, like something's right on his ass chasing him."
All right, so I'm now going to direct you from lines 4 through 13, okay? So what did he say about being able to recognize this person in lines 4 through 13?
He had seen 2 to 3 prior videos that Diego Perez had provided to him or shown him. He uses the words of this guy breaking into or being or wandering around into this house that's it's under construction.
All right, so I'm going to stop you there. How many videos did he say he'd seen?
2 to 3.
2 to 3 videos.
So,
Okay. And he was shown these videos by who?
Diego Perez.
All right. And he described it as this guy doing what?
He used the words breaking into or being or wandering around into this house.
And this is a house that's under construction.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, with regard to the guy that owns it, what's he talk about the guy that owns it? Line 8 through 13. Go ahead and give it to us verbatim.
Quoting the guy that owns it, I guess he's doing it himself because it's been in that state with no doors, no windows on it for well over a year now. I think the guy's a banker in Alma, and this is his second, or it's like a vacation home for him, but he's in no rush to build it.
All right. So did you then ask him? I feel, take that question back. Hold on. I'm going to pivot on you for a second. I'm going to go ahead and have you then move forward to pages 13 through 14. So on pages 13 through 14, do we now pick up back where he's talking about what he did after he's seen the black guy going down the street?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to have you do this. We are going to do lines 21 through 25 on page 13, starting with, "Well, I'm thinking."
I'll be quoting him. He says, "Well, I'm thinking he's either done something to somebody something to, somebody's chasing him, or, you know, I thought, well, maybe somebody drove up and found him in their house, or drove up to that particular house he likes to go into over and over again.
So he doesn't tell you he specifically saw him commit a crime that day.
Correct.
And going to the next page, 14, line 3, what's he do?
He runs inside of his house and
Okay.
retrieves a
Runs inside his house. Okay. And what did he retrieve?
a .357 Magnum.
I'm going to direct your attention now to page 24. So with regard to page 24, does he talk to you about how he was able to recognize or think he recognizes Mr. Arbery as the guy from the construction house?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
All right, so I'm going to have you specifically start on line 1.
He refers to Mr. Diego Garcia again, and he tells me that.
You mean Mr. Diego Perez?
I'm sorry, thank you, Diego Perez.
Okay.
And he, Mr. Perez shows Mr. Greg McMichael what the guy looks like using video.
Actually, what I'm going to have you do is I want you to go ahead and just give it to him verbatim, starting at line 1 through line 8, okay?
Quoting, Mr. McMichael says yes, and he shows me what the guy looks like because I had never seen him. So I had heard a description of him, or maybe I had seen him. Maybe I had seen him before he moved to Diego's. I don't really remember exactly, but nonetheless, he had a video that night. He said, take a look at this, and you can see the guy. He's, roaming around in there.
Okay. And then what did you ask?
I asked him if the individual was picking up anything or going through anything.
And specifically, what did he say? Go ahead and quote it for us. Line 11 through 15.
He says, and I'm quoting, not that I recall, I don't think the guy has actually stolen anything out of there, or if he did, it was early in this process. But he keeps going back there over and over and over again to this damn house.
All right, so when you're asking him, was he picking up anything or going through anything, are you talking about that day or are you talking about what he'd seen on the videos?
What he had seen on the videos.
Okay. And he says he doesn't recall seeing him ever steal anything or pick anything up.
Correct.
All right. And he said, I don't think the guy's actually stolen anything out of there. Is that what he tells you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And
that was an incomplete question, and I would ask that the state, if she's asking the witness to reiterate the testimony that he's already given, which is her right to do, that she state it accurately.
Sure. Just be cleaned up. Do it.
thank you. So, and then did he go on to say, if he did, it was early on in this process?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if he did, was he able to tell you that he had personal knowledge of any prior theft that Mr. Arbery had committed at the open construction site? I mean, right there, it says if he did. Did he give you details?
No, ma'am, he did not.
Did he give you dates?
No, ma'am, he did not.
Did he talk at all about a boat and stuff being stolen off a boat at any point in time?
No, ma'am.
All right, so I'm going to direct your attention now specifically to Let's go to page 24. Oh, I'm sorry. No wonder it's not working for me. Let's go to page 28. All right. Now, at this point in time, the top of page 28, are you trying to have him clarify some stuff for you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, where did he say he ran?
Into his residence.
All right. And what did he get out?
A 357 Magnum.
All right. And he did, I'm going to take you to the bottom of page 30 now. Once he ran to the house and got his gun, he went to the truck.
Yes, ma'am.
What did he say the problem with the truck was?
His grandson's car seat is in the passenger side of the truck.
And turning the page to page 31, starting at line 2. But anyway.
He said, I'll quote him, but anyway, it's strapped in. It's a beast to get in and out, processing. So I just opened up, sitting up on top of this car seat like this, my head, I'm looking down like this through the windshield.
And does he indicate where the truck now goes?
Yes, ma'am.
And it goes down to the corner, and where does it go after that?
Mentions it goes down to the corner of Burford Road.
And why do they go down to Burford Road? Based on lines 14 and 15 of page 31.
He says Burford, that's where he is. He's going down. He's running down Burford.
All right, so I'm going to specifically take you to the top of page 32. Okay. All right, so at this point in time, generally, does Gregory McMichael indicate to you that Mr. Arbery's on the left-hand side of the road?
Yes, ma'am.
And is Mr. Gregory McMichael indicating whether he's yelling at Mr. Arbery?
Yes, ma'am.
What's he yelling at Mr. Arbery?
Stop, 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 stop.
All right. And then, what's he say that Mr. Arbery does on line 3?
Line 3, he says that Mr. Arbery puts it in high gear.
Okay. And what did Mr. Gregory McMichael say at that point once Mr. Arbery put it in high gear?
He stated to cut him off 3 times.
All right. He just said, I said, cut him off, cut him off, cut him off.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what did he say the guy did next?
Mr. Arbery started running back the other way.
Well, did he turn around first?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Turn around first and start running back the other way.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, at this point, does Mr. McMichael indicate that where he is as far as being in the truck, out of the truck, or anything like that, according to line 17 and 18?
He's out of the truck on foot. He was heading the same direction Mr. Arbery was not heading.
All right. So at this point, when the guy turns around and runs back the other way on Burford, Mr. Greg Michael's out of that truck and he's headed back down that way on foot.
Yes, ma'am.
So at some point, does he decide to get back in the white pickup truck?
Yes, ma'am.
And so what does he say specifically lines 19 through 22?
He says, quoting, so I'm not getting back in that front seat, the car seat. So I jumped to the back. I don't jump anywhere.
He doesn't jump anywhere. So what does he say he did next?
So he says, and quote, continuing the quote from there, okay, so I crawled my old cripple ass up into the back of the truck, and I can still see the guy down there.
All right. So by the time he gets back in the truck, he can still see Mr. Arbery down there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So taking you to page 33. I'm going to go ahead on page 33 and have you start about midway where you're talking about being on Zellwood. So you're talking to Mr. Greg McMichael about, we're coming up on Zellwood.
Yes, ma'am.
What does he say?
He confirms that, yes, Zellwood.
And then where did he say they went?
They went down Holmes Road.
All right. And did he indicate why they went down Holmes Road?
He mentions that he turned down, Mr. Arbery turned down Holmes Road.
And at some point, does he indicate whether Mr. Arbery sees them?
Yes, ma'am.
And once he sees them, what does Mr. Arbery do?
He turned and started running back. He uses the words that way.
All right. And then does he tell you where that is back toward where?
He indicates the intersection of back towards this intersection.
Does he actually say what intersection at that point?
No, ma'am, he doesn't right at this point.
He just says intersection.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, page 33. All right, so I'm actually going to have you give the jury the specific quotes on line 20 through 22 that Greg McMichael says. Okay? And what I want is, does he first indicate the guy? Let me think. The guy is, he sees Mr. McMichael. And then does he say at some point, he, meaning the guy, turns and starts running back that way?
Yes, ma'am.
So going to page 34 now. Did you ask Mr. McMichael where Mr. McMichael tried to pin Mr. Arbery the first time?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did he indicate he tried to pin Mr. Arbery the first time?
On Burford Road.
Right. Now, going to page 35. As they're on Holmes Road, where is Mr. Greg McMichael? Line 21.
He says that he is in the back of the truck with the 357.
All right. Now, specifically, on Holmes Road in the back of the truck with the 357, he then says specifically, I want you to quote this, line 25 into the top of line 1 and 2 on page 36. What does he specifically say?
Quoting, he says, I said, stop, you know, I'll blow your fucking head off or something. I was trying to convey to this guy we were not playing, you know.
Okay. Now, does he specifically indicate at what point he says this to Mr. Arbery?
No, ma'am.
All right, so you don't know where on Holmes Road it is that he says this to Mr. Arbery?
No, ma'am.
Going now to page 39. All right, so I'm going to talk to you now about what Mr. Greg McMichael says happens next. I'm going to direct your attention to lines 2 through 7 of page 39.
Okay.
All right, so once again, he's in the back of the truck with his weapon. What does he say he's doing?
He says that he's aiming.
Did he shoot?
No, ma'am.
And after he heard the shots were fired, how many shots did he say were fired?
He mentions 2.
And what did he do next?
He gets out of the truck. He stated that he had a hip replacement so it doesn't jump anywhere, that he eased himself out of the truck.
All right. So this is a man with a hip replacement. And so he had to ease himself out of the truck. Is that
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Okay. And at this point in time, did he indicate that he went and checked Mr. Arbery for a weapon?
Yes, ma'am.
Now directing your attention to page 41. Did Mr. McMichael indicate whether he had his cell phone with him?
He did not.
All right.
He stated he did not.
All right. But he did call 911.
Yes, ma'am.
Whose phone did he have to
He
use?
used Travis McMichael's phone.
So specifically then directing your attention to page 42. At this point in the interview, did you really start to talk to him about what was his intent with Mr. Arbery should he have actually stopped?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what was his intent?
He said to hold him. To hold him.
To hold him.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he use the word arrest?
No, ma'am.
Did he tell you what he was going to be arrested for?
No, ma'am.
Did he use the word citizen's arrest?
No, ma'am.
Did he use the word detain?
No, ma'am.
So he's holding him. Did he tell you what he was going to hold him for?
He was going to contact the county police.
Okay, and do what?
He was going to hold him for county police so that he could either be arrested or identified.
All right, I'm going to back you up for a minute. Specifically, line 24 through 25. I'm going to actually take you up to line 21. I want you to read that quote to the jury.
He says, and I quote, "Yeah, to hold him till you know and call county police to." I said, "Okay." He continues to come and, check him out.
Check him out?
Yes,
Come and check him out? That's what he says?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So he's calling to have the county police come and check him out. And then what does he say?
Continuing quote, I mean, there was no doubt in my mind as to who this guy was, none, having seen the videos prior.
All right. So having seen the videos, he's making this identification of this man.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, what else is he then talking to you about? The next thing that he's trying to explain his intent to you about.
I'll continue to quote from there. The thing that was not doubtful, but was certainly a driving factor in my mind, was that my son had a missing pistol, and I'm pretty certain this guy. Well, I don't know for a fact, and I have no reason to think that he did it, other than the fact that this guy's been doing this crap over and over and over.
Okay, so he's talking about his son, Travis McMichael, has a missing pistol.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he's trying to tell you, I'm pretty certain this guy, but I don't know for a fact that he's the one who stole it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what he's trying to tell you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But he doesn't have any evidence to present to you that Mr. Arbery is the one who stole Travis McMichael's handgun.
Correct.
Providing statements to the officer about it.
Just let the transcript speak for itself. Statement.
Did he say, I don't know for a fact?
Yes, ma'am.
Did they then say, I have no reason to think that he did it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Other than the fact that he's been doing this crap over and over and over.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In fact, when he goes down to line 17 through 21, what does he say about Travis McMichael's stolen handgun at that point?
He says, and quoting, "Yeah, I had never seen this guy personally before and didn't see anybody go to the truck that day and take his weapon."
So going to the truck and taking the weapon, is that Travis McMichael's handgun?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so Greg McMichael is talking about with you a lot of different crimes that he suspects Mr. Arbery had committed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did he provide you with any specific details about the names, the addresses, the locations of these crimes?
No, ma'am.
All right. But did he talk about break-ins?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he throw around the word burglaries?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned burglary. Yeah.
All right. Did he throw around like entering autos or doing stuff like that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did I ask you to go back and look at all of the 911 calls into the Satilla Shores neighborhood from January 1st of 2019 through February 23rd of 2020?
Yes, ma'am. I think it actually looked into we look further into 2020. Let's see. It was from the dates that I looked at were 1/1 of 2019 to 5/25 of 20.
All right, so what I'm going to have you do is only focus on 1/1 of 19 through February 23rd of 2020, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so how many burglary calls for 911 came into the Satilla Shores neighborhood?
Object, because this is calling for hearsay. He's asking him to report what he learned through other calls and documents, and the subject matter of those, and the determinations of those. That's all hearsay. There should be witnesses for those documents. He didn't have anything to do with these things.
Foundation of what's done and where to.
Sure thing. So, detective, which organization do you work for? All right, and you were a detective who worked on this case, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you interviewed Greg McMichael, that's correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and Greg McMichael had a claim that there was burglaries and entering autos and all this stuff, and he suspected Mr. Arbery.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When I asked you to go ahead and review this information, how did you get this particular information I asked you to review?
I received the original list of incidents from the area from our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I went into our reporting system, Spillman, and I pulled it again, and then exported just the general list of case numbers, dates, and natures into Excel and started looking at case counts. Then went back into Spillman and pulled the same range, but it was only incidents that an actual report had been taken. So versus somebody calling in, an officer responding and clearing up, they help somebody out or something that doesn't require an actual written report versus they actually went back and were required to document something. I pulled both lists.
All right, so you pulled both lists. And this is a system that is maintained in the normal course of business at the Glenn County Police Department?
Yes, ma'am. It's used by most, I believe, all agencies in Glenn County. if not
All right.
most.
And I think you mentioned its name was Spillman?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And are these documents kept in the ordinary course of business for you to do evaluations on?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're available for you as part of your job as a detective?
Yes, ma'am.
And you can pull them up to do analysis, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And in this case, did I ask you to pull them up out of Spillman independently yourself to perform an analysis?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did I ask you to look at?
The reports, the ones that actually had the reports written for them. So cases that were closed out, active. The best way to say is in our terminology. So an incident report was completed.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and drill down to that. Do people call 911 and then there's nothing really there to it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But there's still a 911 call recorded that comes up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when you looked at what I actually looked at, it was actually a 911 call where there was like kind of something that actually really happened.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So in other words, there was an investigation, somebody looked into something, somebody reported something, and that somebody wrote a report.
For some instances, and then one other instance with a burglary, there wasn't a report.
So there was one burglary that's unfounded.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And that is all of January 1st, 2019 through February 23rd of 2020?
Objectionable material. It's being offered for the truth. Somebody investigated, somebody reported, somebody wrote a report. That information the state is now offering as the truth that either an incident did or didn't take place. She's offering it to this witness that has no direct knowledge of it. It's being offered for the truth. So if the state wants to do that, call the witnesses who dealt with it.
We join in that objection.
So explain where the state's coming from on it.
Sure.
I asked her to explain where the state is coming from on it.
Well, Your Honor,
Based
we would
on the
ask that
objection.
this be done outside the presence of the jury.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could go ahead and take a step outside, or step back into the jury.
All right, for jury.
All right, I'm going to ask if you could just go ahead and take a step outside of the courtroom while we address the matter before the court. One second.
Thank you, Judge. The only testimony the state is trying to elicit at this point in time is that there was only one burglary call in the entire Satilla Shores neighborhood between January 1st, 2019 and February 23rd, 2020, and it was an unfounded burglary call. In addition, there were only 4 entering auto calls in that time frame, one of which was Travis McMichael's on January 1st, 2020. So the state is entitled to rebut these statements by Greg McMichael about, oh, there's all this crime and he's this suspect. He's already, the statement's already in. Oh, they've got him on video every third or fourth night out there breaking into people's homes. And the reality is that is not the case whatsoever. In this case, it's not hearsay. And the reason it's not hearsay is it's not a statement of another person. This is a computer system. It's business records that are kept in the ordinary course of business. This is an officer who is entitled and actually duty-bound kind of during his investigations to pull these records and look at them. I asked him to pull these records to verify the number and type of call and then to look at the calls that were burglaries and entering autos. So we know exactly what had taken place during this time frame in reality. He's not going to testify to what the victim said or which officer responded or any of those sorts of things. It is strictly to provide the jury with the actual numbers of 911 calls that came in where there was an actual crime that took place.
Sure.
Yeah, I think if I'm hearing it correctly, Greg McMichael has said there's been burglaries and entering autos in the neighborhood that he's aware of. The state wants to now prove that Greg McMichael is lying and that there really are no burglaries or entering autos that have happened in the neighborhood, or not to the extent that he has told officers his belief of the extent of it. And they intend to do that by having this officer, who has looked at some reports that have been generated that have a conclusion within them. Either a statement by somebody saying some information that has caused it to be reported as a burglar entering auto or not. And then a conclusion by an investigating officer that says the initial call is not sustained or not substantiated, for lack of a better word, meaning the opinion of some individual after investigating this particular call to try to disprove what the state is offering, what the state is offering by Mr. McMichael. They're offering the truth. It's hearsay. This witness has no knowledge. This witness did not do the investigation. It's like bringing in a conclusion in a report of drugs in a system or something like that. You have to have the witness who's done it to come testify. It's hearsay as it gets.
Your Honor, the records themselves are kept in the ordinary course of business by a records custodian. This man is not the records custodian. This man did his own search on a system and pulled up some reports. It would be no different, can you hand that to me, please, than us calling our investigator to say, I went through all of the reports to find what had gone on in Satilla Shores during a certain time frame, and look how many things I found. And you would say, I suspect, when the state objected, that's hearsay, Your Honor. You need to either get the certified records from the appropriate certifying agency, or you need to have each of these people come in and talk about their reports. So for that reason, this is not an appropriate way to try to prove what had been going on in that neighborhood.
Your Honor, first of all, I'm concerned, and I think the court has an obligation at some point to inquire the suggestion that this was not a neighborhood on edge flies in the face of overwhelming evidence, and trying to take cherry-picked information, hearsay information, and bring that in this case, I find troubling. I find it troubling. The state is the one who elicited, unless I missed it, the state's the one eliciting the statements from Greg McMichael about all the crime in the neighborhood. That's not something that any of the defendants did in this case. They brought it in. Now they're impeaching their own witness because they made Mr. McMichael their own witness in this context with this additional information. I would suggest, with all respect, that's rebuttal information. If and when the McMichaels actually present that defense or that evidence, I think it's inappropriate. And, Your Honor, to allow this at this time is wrong. This isn't the typical case, Your Honor, where you can say you don't know what the evidence is. I cannot remember a case where a judge, sorry for the privilege, has been forced to learn so much of the factual evidence and details of the case in advance of the trial. The court knows exactly what the issue is here. And this cherry picking of information is inappropriate in this context. And we would ask the court to disallow this line of questioning at this time, subject to possibly reconsidering it for rebuttal purposes when it's proper.
Let's motion. The objection's overruled. This is the police witnesses testified to these being records. Yeah, you're not going to hear me that way. I'll just speak up. The witnesses testified as a police witness that these are records that he would regularly rely upon as part of his investigation, regularly held records by the Glenn County Police Department in a known system. I do think, though, that there is clarification that's needed when it comes to the records. The way the question was asked, I think needs to be clarified, because the way it's asked makes it sound like he is testifying as to what actually happened as opposed to simply what his record review was. So with that caveat, the objection is overruled. He's simply relying upon the records that he was provided. That's the accuracy of the records. That goes to weight. And on cross-examination, you can cross-examine him on his knowledge of the records.
You know, I have a second matter I want to take up while the jury's out. And maybe it was a misunderstanding, but Ms. Burton pointed out to me the Bruton issue that had come up. The only thing that I expressed concern about, that I objected to with respect to statements about my client in this statement, the only thing that I'm concerned about, not concerned about all the references to the block and all the references to truck, we let all that go. I specifically objected that I did not want Greg McMichael's testimony about his relationship to Roddy Bryan coming into evidence. So there's one spot. And sure enough, I thought that was covered. And I'm told that, in fact, that was brought in. That's a problem. And if it's late, then it's an ineffective assistance to counsel issue. But I'm making a motion for mistrial under Bruton based on that. In the alternative, I don't know that you can cure it. And here's why, Your Honor. Because I know you're not looking at me. You're not giving me that look yet. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how could that make any difference? How could that be important in this case? It goes back to the severance issue that we talked about before. The state has these before the fact, after the fact conspiracy theories to get around the fact that there were no communications between Roddy Bryan and Greg McMichael prior to the shooting in this case about this matter. And now we've gotten in Greg McMichael's version of his relationship with Mr. Bryan. I can't cross-examine him. Now we've got the jail call. We've talked about that before. Jail call looming out there about how Roddy Bryan is Greg McMichael's ally. Again, I can't cross-examine Greg McMichael about any of that. And I'm sure it didn't dawn on the state that, well, yeah, you know what? I'm not assuming anything. But we all know we have another issue with Roddy Bryan's fiance, because everybody knows that there is no relationship between Greg McMichael and Roddy Bryan. Because Greg McMichael is not welcome in the Bryan residence, not because of anything that happened between Mr. Bryan and Mr. McMichael, but because of issues involving his fiance and her family. Now, how am I going to possibly deal with any of that? The state's putting me in a position, it's forcing me at some point to make a motion for severance, because I can't defend Roddy against outreach and respectful treatment. I can't defend Roddy against allegations of some special relationship in this case. And I'm not saying they're doing it deliberately, but they're putting me in a box where Roddy Bryan can't get a fair trial without being able to cross-examine Gregory McMichael in this case. Now, if Gregory McMichael testifies, I guess there's no problem. But in the event that Mr. McMichael doesn't testify, then how do I defend Roddy against these charges? That's the problem. I'm making a motion for mistrial, and I'm reserving the right to move.
So why don't you take it to the room to charge it?
That's true.
You charge the mom's room.
Objections.
Any of the other defendants joining in the mistrial?
Thank you.
On the prudent issue that Mr. Goff has raised, no.
There you go. Sorry, I did forgot to mute myself. As you guys can see, I got my daughter with me now.
First off, objections need to be contemporaneous when it took place, and there was no objection at the time this took place. Number two, this is not an inculpatory statement in any way. People having known each other in this context
Thanks for
is
the mute.
absolutely not inculpatory because, as Mr. Goff knows, the evidence is going to come out that they don't have each other's phone numbers in each other's cell phones, okay? And that they didn't know each other like that. And that is evidence the state is going to present. Number two, I think it would be a prudent violation to put in a jail call where Mr. Gregory McMichael is calling Mr. Bryan an ally. That would be inculpatory. And Mr. Goff keeps asserting that we're going to do conspiracy after the fact. That is not what we're going to go into. Conspiracy after the fact that they...
Conspiracy after the fact.
We don't intend to go into all of...
Oh, yeah, the conspiracy issue. Yes, sure. I'll explain it later. Let me just get myself set back up again.
Of going into everything that took place afterwards. If that becomes relevant, it may be gone into. And at that point in time, it may be something to explore exactly how this video got out on the internet and how Mr. Gregory McMichael went to Mr. Bryan and asked for his phone and did all this stuff. But the state has no intention of putting that in its case in chief at all. Okay, because that's not anything that's going to come in my opinion, at this point in time. So all of the paper tigers that Mr. Goff is talking about, the state doesn't intend to put those in.
I would have made that
I'm just trying to not
objection.
Box myself in if for some reason it does actually end up being.
I would have made that
relevant because
objection.
Mr. Goff puts it in, or
Even though
it's
it's a business
I don't
record.
foresee it coming in. So at this point in time,
All right, just to go back for the business record exception, for the hearsay rule, right? A lot of people know that hearsay is one of those rules that have a lot of exceptions, and one of the exceptions is business records. Those are things that you keep as a course of business. So if you at some places, if somebody gets hurt, they keep incident reports. So if every time there's an accident or something, you write an incident report. Those are considered business records and are exempt from the hearsay rule because you're doing it in the course of business. And that's what they're saying here with the phone call, for instance. Well, before this argument, before this objection with the phone call, they were saying, well, the fact that there's only one burglary called in that time frame, that means that that's an exception to the hearsay rule. They're business exceptions, right? They're doing it in the course of business. So that's why the judge was like, I'll let it in, but you have to clean up the way you asked about it because it's a business record. So. Let me play this.
it's inculpatory statements that Bruton violates. And knowing somebody for years, but I'm not sure exactly where he lives in the neighborhood, it does show the nature of the relationship, which is not a close one if you don't even know where the guy lives in the neighborhood.
Well, Your Honor, if the state's going to withdraw the conspiracy charge, then that would change the character of the case.
I just have to add on the after the fact conspiracy defense to its case in chief that the state just made. Just yesterday, they elicited from former Officer Minshew on direct examination in their case in chief evidence that after the fact, that is after the shooting, Mr. McMichael was over near his truck talking to Roddy Bryan. And you have to ask, why was that a fact of relevance to the case, if not to suggest?
All right, just so everybody understands, after the fact conspiracy. All right, because I see people asking about it in the chat. After the fact conspiracy is after the crime is committed, we have a conspiracy to conceal what really happened, that crime. So that's what that's what the defense is worried about, is that, okay, after the shooting, then all of a sudden you're saying that all these people now were talking to get their story straight. That's an after the fact conspiracy. So that's what they're concerned about. After the fact, did they have a conspiracy amongst themselves to try to hide the truth? So that's the situation here. And they were like, well, the state's not charging that. Then why are we getting to it? Because they don't want the state to pop up with the charge later. Hey, guess what? We got all this evidence in. Let's charge them with the after the fact conspiracy, which if you do, it's just as damning as the other stuff too. So you're like, oh, we don't want to hurt them. This is Ahmaud Arbery. I hope that was helpful, but that's what they're talking
And
about
at this
now.
point, they're suggesting it, they're humming it. I suspect they'll sing it in closing. That he got up with Roddy Bryan after the shooting to talk about something or other sinister and conspiratorial and let's cover our tracks kind of stuff. In fact, I think that's why they were talking about all the other people Mr. McMichael was talking to on the scene after the fact. If not for that, why bring it in? I don't know what else they could think it was relevant to, unless it's to say later he's trying to fix this case up by talking to people.
See, I think I explained that well.
Here.
And, oh, sorry.
It's motion for mistrial before the court.
Yes.
Okay. That is denied. All of this is preparing
I
the
don't know.
ground.
I don't
At this
know.
point, I'm not aware of the issue currently before the court, but it sure sounds like everybody's got a heads up on where this thing could go. The state's headed in that direction with the evidence. And, I understand what counsel's raising, but at this point, what I'm ruling on is a motion for mistrial based upon a statement that just came in through the state.
Yes, my comments are more in the nature at this point of just record correcting on the assertion.
So
by
we
the
so we
state
have a
that
mistrial.
They're not talking about anything after the fact, when in fact they are.
If we're getting
And
a,
court is
if we're if the
correct.
court's
It
getting
is
given,
laying
I don't think the
groundwork
court's going to
possibly
grant this
for
mistrial.
Future motions. for
That's an
mistrial
extraordinary
from
remedy.
Anyone or all of these defendants.
And for the record, Your Honor, if I have prematurely assumed things incorrectly, my apologies to opposing counsel.
Now that Mr. Hogue has put this all on the record, I do want to put something on the record. All that activity at the scene happened between the homicide and when they made their statements. And what the state is basically pointing out is that Greg McMichael was putting out his narrative and trying to control the scene. And he did all of that before he made it to talk to Parker Marcy. And so it doesn't necessarily go to after the fact, meaning in May of 2020. That's not the after the fact the state's talking about. The conspiracy after the fact in the state's mind is what's happening on the scene that we can see on video of all of this where they're talking to each other there before they ever make any statements to law enforcement or go down a couple
But
hours later to make their
The
statement.
DA is trying to
And
play a
that is
game.
where the state is focused.
She's making a after the fact conspiracy argument. I think everybody can see that.
Why?
Their veracity and credibility.
We know that it's not for their. We know that. But she is making an after the fact conspiracy argument.
Your Honor, the most important issue for me is is the court going to break for lunch?
I'd like to get done with at least the direct examination of this witness. How much longer do we have from the state?
We have 4 more pages and several videos.
Break for lunch.
Now is going to be a good time.
Yeah, break for lunch.
All right. Let's go ahead and get the panel and we'll let them know we're going to be breaking for lunch.
All right. So, but he did he deny the motion for mistrial? Who knows? But I'm assuming he didn't. I'm assuming he's denying the motion for mistrial. Even though I would be concerned if I was one of the defense attorneys, like, you are making an argument here. She's saying, so essentially the defense is like, you're making an argument to charge them with after the fact conspiracy. She's saying, no, we're just challenging their veracity and credibility at the scene because they made all these statements. So I'm assuming this is denied. Yeah, it's denied. Yeah, but now we know the facts. The facts are there was only one unfounded call for burglary in all that time. So all this stuff that there was this menace, that the burglar was down there, that this, there were all these calls, one call, and that's the defense didn't want to get in. Unfortunately, it's getting in. You got one call for burglary. I wonder how that affects people's perceptions of this case, right? One call for burglary over all that time, and they screaming like it was a menace, right? They're screaming like he's here 5-6 times. We got burglar and everything. Only got one call for burglary. That was unfounded. I don't know where you go with that, but that's not a good fact for the defense. Jury's back in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, sort of moving you around to feels
Yes.
like move you around for the sake of moving you around. We're going to go ahead and break for lunch, but I have to always make those announcements on the record. So there's a bet going on, wasn't there? What we're going to do is we're going to break for lunch. We're going to break for
Jurors are
an
betting
hour.
whether they're going for lunch or
20
not.
past 1. During the break, again, do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Don't let anybody discuss it in your presence.
More than
Hearing.
one.
If somebody does,
More
please
than one. If
notify
it's a
the
problem,
jury,
right?
and we'll go
One
ahead
is
and
not a
see what we
problem.
need to
5 is a
address.
problem
Those
because
instructions and all of
reasonable.
the other instructions that I have given you. Enjoy your lunch. We'll see you back here in an hour. Thank you.
All right, for the jury.
All right, so we're moving to Rittenhouse while they're at lunch. They're at lunch for an hour, so that gives us a chance to focus in on the Rittenhouse case and see if there's any explosions going on there. Switching to the where's that? Go on Rittenhouse.
So there was no muzzle stamp in this case?
No.
Okay, I'd like to ask.
Direct exempt. Oh, this is redirect.
41, but as we're doing that,
I hope you guys enjoyed this because this is a not demonetized. Let me see. I don't think this is going to be monetized. They killed me yesterday, so I had the video from yesterday because of the pictures of the bodies. They not only demonetized it, but they made I can't monetize it, and I can't and what's the hell? Like I can't even monetize it, and I forgot what else is age restricted, which is crazy. It's age restricted, which is crazy.
if I'm holding a rifle, let's just say that I've shot you in the hip. How does it make sense that the
How's lunchtime? Oh, how lunchtime? I think lunchtime's for the hour.
So this points in the direction. Oh, thank you.
All right, for those who watch the Chauvin trial, isn't this very much? This guy looks just like the doctor from the Chauvin trial, no? Well, when he gets from behind the screen. At first, I thought it was the same guy. I'm like, this is the guy from the Chauvin trial?
So we're talking about the left hand. The injuries are to the palmar surface of the index and the middle fingers. The exit is to the side of the index finger. So obviously it's hard to do this completely, but it's like this. So in the anatomic position, it looks like that. But keeping in mind that your arm and your hand move in a lot of different ways. So, so if you
What are we
were to
doing
take
here?
the hand and you were to be in a position in which the hand was like this with the palm kind of downward, you could orient this so that you could explain the gunshot wound going down and hitting the pavement, and then the fragments hitting the left side of the thigh.
if you could put your hand out again, doctor, like you had. So, but the barrel would have to be behind the injury, correct?
Yes.
So the bullet would have had to travel outside of the barrel. So the barrel would have had to have been in front of or somehow separated from where the wound took place.
Well, that's what I said. I can't tell that. This is a close range wound with soot, but there isn't going to be a muzzle stamp because of the skin of the palm. So it's within that distance, but whether it's in contact or whether it's just in front of it, of the entrance portion of the wound, or inches away, that's not something I can tell you.
You just indicated be consistent with swiping something away,
What are we swiping away here?
swiping a barrel away?
I can't tell you what he was doing at the time that happened. All I can tell you is that at the time of the discharge of the weapon and the traveling of that bullet into his hand, this is the trajectory that it took through his hand. I can't tell you what he was doing at the time, and I can't see it on the video. The video's not good enough for that.
So the bullet went through his hand? Like, how is this helping the prosecution at this point in time? Can somebody help him with this? How is this helping the prosecution in the Rittenhouse case? Wasn't the argument that he was lunging for the gun? If you're lunging for the gun and the bullet goes through your hand, game over, right? Like, can somebody explain this to me? Anybody in the chat? What's going on? This doesn't make any sense.
Could holding something in your hand, could that impact the wounds or the stippling or the soot or anything of that nature?
He's got stippling too. That means he was really close.
You mean, well, I mean, if you're holding something in your hand and you're referring to some kind of something that's going to create an intermediary target or something, yeah, that can affect the appearance of wounds. You know, the injury might look very different in that case.
So when Attorney Richards was talking to you about the wound to Mr. Rosenbaum's left hand, and
it looks like it.
and there's
Looks like it a lot.
places, if he was holding, say, a handle of something, would you expect that
the prosecutor held himself with both feet, huh?
No evidence.
Thanks. So this is a super chat. So, for the medical examiner has testified that all the gunshot wounds occurred within 4 feet of the gun. The DA should ask Cobb now to put out the dumpster fire because their case is a big one right now. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Damn.
I'm not really sure I understand the question.
You're not the first.
Even the court reporters laughing.
Hesitated before when asked about medical certitude, which is a common expression we use in the courts.
I'll turn down my volume because I can't turn up the court volume.
To see what degree of, how would you phrase the degree of certitude with which you would typically respond?
Well, I can testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty when I'm using the autopsy findings and the meaning of those in reference to the injuries. I've seen the video. As I have testified, I discussed the video with regards to his position when I heard the gunshot wounds discharge. I can't really see what's going on in front of him at those times.
That's
so
true.
When the questions are going into those specifics, I don't.
But I only
think
saw him once, so
I
give me a
can
break.
answer those.
I was like, oh, is
from
that the same
video
guy?
that I
And
watched.
he's testifying
So
about,
I think I'm trying to be careful not
about
to
it as an
over,
autopsy guy too. He's
evaluate
testifying
that
about the whole
video
death thing.
more than I used it for, which is to determine what position he was in when those gunshot wounds were received.
Why don't you rephrase your question? What's required here for the state, certainly, but frankly for both parties, but is a degree of certitude, which the physician can testify.
The injuries and everything you testified to on the left hand, that's consistent with nothing being in his hand?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
So,
I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 41. If you can tell, is this the video that you reviewed in terms of both the shooting deaths of Mr. Rosenbaum and Mr. Huber?
It is.
I'd ask you to play the video until I ask you to stop.
Nah, that's it. We'll see. That's my bet. That's what I'm waiting for. Oh wow!
Can you see where on there you indicate that?
Not yet. I'm waiting for
he'd
it.
be positioned with the
That's what I'm waiting
first
for.
shot?
Arbery
Yes,
is
I
on
can-
lunch until 1:20.
Clearly see the reflection of light on his back, and I can see that he's upright when the first shot is heard.
What are they getting at here? They're just drawing this out.
So that would not be consistent with the shot to the hand.
No, I think that's, I think that placing the hand in that position would affect the gunpowder stippling to his lower abdomen. So I don't think the hand is involved in that first shot.
So that means he was that close?
to the best of
Gunfire
your-
stippling on his lower abdomen?
So it's consistent that the first shot is to the hip.
That's what I think.
It makes
that's
sense
what
if
I
he's
think.
pulling a gun up.
And the second shot would be to
Boom.
the hand.
And then to the hands. Because you're coming
And the
up and down
third
the
or
up.
fourth shot, can you order those any more specifically?
To the head and back.
But
So
they
he's
would be as he's
so
in horizontal position, perhaps falling after being struck in the hip.
That's right.
so I lunge
Let's,
at you.
show exhibit
You're
86,
picking a gun up, shot to the hip, shot to the hand, and then shot to the head and back, right? So but you can't tell which one because he's going down. So you get the shot to the head and the shot to the back this way. But the shot to the back is horizontal. This is consistent with everything we've already heard, right? This is nothing that's helping the prosecution. Hey, Alan, thank you, brother. Yeah, I don't see how this is helping the prosecution at all, right? So it's he's running and here's his head and he gets shot in the hip, he bends, shot in the hand, bends more, shot in the head, and in the back because he's bending down. But that's after the lunge. And those 4 shots, boom, 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 boom.
I'll ask you to pause it.
All right, so we get a close-up view. All right, so now
Pause.
he's even falling forward after
Doctor,
those
did
shots.
you see that large amount of smoke that was emitted from the gun?
Yes.
How is this helping the
Now,
prosecution?
With that amount of smoke out of an AR-15, would that impact how far the stippling may occur?
Would the smoke impact?
The large amount of smoke. Would the stippling go further out than the 4 feet?
No, I don't think there's not a relationship.
I would be objecting. This guy's not a
Stippling
firearms
is
expert, right?
gunpowder particles that are flying through the
He doesn't
air
know how far the
and
stippling's gonna go.
dispersing as they travel. The smoke is the smoke and soot from the barrel of the gun.
Does the amount of gunpowder matter in the stippling? I'll
Well,
withdraw.
yes,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it does. I mean, there's the number of gunpowder particles that leave the barrel of the gun are not predictable, certainly, but they will travel in a dense group and then disperse as they get farther away, with more and more falling to the side until none have the energy to create stippling to the skin.
Now, when you see that large puff of smoke, you said that would be that is what would potentially leave soot on a individual.
My presumption is that soot, that puff was the smoke and soot from the end of the gun.
So with that large amount of soot, would it be possible to deposit soot further out than just a few inches?
I don't know if I can answer that question. Again, test firing the weapon, you might be able to derive more information, but certainly soot's not very aerodynamic. It doesn't travel.
Now, Attorney Richards did a demonstration with you where he stood about 4 feet away and talked about the intermediate range. Now, we're in talking about intermediate range, you're talking about feet from the barrel of the gun, not from the shooter.
Correct. To be specific, the injuries that we're talking about are from the barrel of the gun to the surface that they make impact with. So the surface of the body in this case.
And you haven't seen the actual weapon in this case, have you?
No, I have not.
The Naked Gun movies. That's true. I agree with this. He did have incredible trigger discipline. I'd have let her a lot more shots. But
So I'm going to ask Detective Training to point the gun at me.
Check it again. Yeah. Check it again.
No need.
I don't know. I don't know why this is like if the case in chief goes on past today, it's like who the hell can you bring on? I understand you got to bring on the autopsy guy to show, this other guy show he was hurt.
If he was to point the gun at me, I'd have to be 4 feet from the barrel of this gun, or 1 to 4 feet to generate the stippling you're talking about.
Inside of 4 feet, like I said, that's an
So not
outside
even
number.
inside of 4 feet.
Approximately where I would be right now.
It's about 4 feet, maybe a little closer.
I'll get a ruler. That's more than 4 feet.
It would be my impression that it's a greater distance than 4 feet.
Well, I'm not bad at distances.
Damn, even the judges say it's more than 4 feet.
It's a little hard to tell, but you're closer.
The witness, the judge, everybody's like, you're more than 4 feet away.
More than one of your arms.
I think this is redirect or the prosecution's. This is not even a like. Why are we talking about guns? This is this is the autopsy guy. Here come Richards. Richards putting on some gloves. Oh, don't do the glove don't fit, Richards.
Doctor, the soot is within 6 inches, correct? The soot stippling?
Oh, the soot.
Soot stippling is 6
The
inches.
soot is within inches.
The intermediate gunpowder stippling is within 4 feet.
Approximately, yes.
And if the first shot is here.
This is good. This is when I am impressed with Kyle's control of the weapon. I will say that.
Shot is the first shot. And somewhere from, and I'm not as good as or as bad, and I don't know, but let's say this is about 4 feet from the barrel of the gun.
It's a little farther than 4 feet.
Okay, so I'm even a little bit further.
Good.
From the furthest he is would be 4 feet. He could have been as close as here with the first shot, correct?
Possibly, but the density of the gunpowder stippling is it's pretty spread out, so I think it's a little further away.
And I'm using my right hand because I'm
That was a good.
These gloves got into court here about 10 years ago, and I understand there are appropriate times to use them, but not everything that.
I don't know why I'm using it.
I don't know why you're putting a glove on.
Yeah, I'm like,
not going to get the cooties from that.
Yeah, from the. Let me put guns on and touch the gun. Like, what the hell's wrong?
Touching with my left hand like this. The heavy soot is right here.
You're with your right hand, but yeah,
The heavy. See, then I got to go to the other side.
yeah, you have to turn around.
Can you switch with me? So if it's the left hand, we're gonna go like right. You see this, doctor?
You actually have to turn your hand over.
Over
And
like this.
No, go the opposite direction, like this.
Like
there you go.
okay, and you would then come in approximately here.
That's the entry point to the hand. Yes.
This is game over. Case over. If it's his hand is right there on the muzzle, what are we talking about here?
Past where fire comes up.
I can only say that there's no soot there.
Okay. There's no, okay.
I know these people are here for news purposes, the photographers, but I actually think for purposes of the record, I'd like them to come up and get a closer shot.
This is it. This, I think that's telling though. I think the judge is telling his hand a little bit. He wants them to take a closer shot at this. He wants this recorded. If Rosenbaum's hand is that close to the goddamn gun.
More like this.
Think about it. His hand is so close to the gun with this guy. It's over. Game over.
Just so the record's
How?
clear, my hand is touching the end of the barrel.
Your hand is now touching the barrel.
Oh God.
And if my hand
This is the state's witness.
were in front of the
Come
barrel,
on, people.
there
Why are
would
we
be
still
soot.
doing this? Really?
And I'm pointing now to
Their witness is saying his hand was likely touching the goddamn gun after the
I
chase?
would call it
Really?
the outside of the pinky finger, so that it's
Game over,
the
bro.
outside of the pinky
Stop
finger,
this
my hand
nonsense.
was in
Come
front of the
on.
barrel.
His hand is touching the goddamn gun.
Heavy
Their
soot
witness is saying this.
at location, correct?
you would expect soot in that.
Where's that? Is there anybody in the
Some of
chat
the
that
jurors
thinks
I don't think are able to see, so.
Kyle Rittenhouse can be guilty?
let's,
This is
you
fucking
got your shot.
ridiculous now. We got to the point of
And,
ridiculousness
Go
now.
ahead.
Pinky finger
His
is
hand is
mostly
touching the
operating
gun.
the side
Their
of my
witness is
hand.
saying it's likely his hand is touching the gun. That's why it's got all this fucking soot on it.
Now the pinky
Really?
heavy soot.
You would expect some soot on that side of the hand.
How many days do we got to go over this bombshell testimony from the fucking prosecution's own
Copies
witness?
of those photos, send copies of those photos to the clerk, please.
I'm telling you, this judge is looking to
Send
dismiss this
copies
case. That's
of
why
those
he wants
photos
the
to the
copies
clerk.
of these photos. He's saying,
Thank you.
this is crazy. If he's touching the gun after the run, unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Unfreaking believable. Chased, ran, turned, and the person lunges at you, literally has his hand on the gun before you fire.
If I'm approaching the detective, and I'm struck in my hip, fracturing my hip, that I would fall, reach out with my hand and try to knock the gun away.
The first shot was to the hand, no. No, the first shot was to the
That's
hip.
a possibility.
The first shot was to the hip, yeah.
Can I position my hand correctly with the evidence?
Your hand is, you put your hand over
We don't know if it's over or something.
this. Well, just in a position so that the soot is on the palmar surface,
Like this?
like this. So if you go in and you,
So the entrance wound is here.
no, the entrance wound is on the palmar surface, the under surface. So if you
What?
do it,
What?
you know, Superman, and
He
then
chased him down.
and then turn your
He
a
lunges.
little bit like this.
He gets shot in the hip and then continues to move forward. So his momentum's pulling forward. And even if you watch the video, his momentum, he gets shot, but he's running so fast and he falls forward. If you're shot and fall back, I understand, but he's shot and he continues to fall forward.
At the gun. That would be consistent with the injuries you found.
Those scenarios are possible.
Fiona,
But my hand is positioned.
the witness is now, the prosecution is saying, look how close his hand was to the gun. And they're trying to explain that
The bullet would have traveled down and potentially kicked up some bullet fragments and concrete hit my leg.
from the floor.
That's what I think happened.
And then I would have continued down, and then the shot to the head and the mid back would have occurred as I was falling down.
As you're more
Okay.
horizontal to the ground, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
He cleaned it up a little bit. I like the way he cleaned it up. He cleaned it up a little bit.
When you get shot the first time, that doesn't cause you to go forward, correct?
That's true, because you go back.
Shouldn't cause you to go forward, backward, or
Okay,
anything.
so he already, Mr. Rosenbaum, already had to have forward momentum at a force to go from the zero shot to the second shot in 2.26 hundredths of a second to be in contact or right on top of that person, correct?
Yes, he had forward momentum.
Thank you.
Game over. Game over.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. You may step down.
Food is here.
Let's break for lunch. It has just arrived, I think, and we'll
They'd have-
take until around 12:30.
Ask the state if they got any more
Any
witnesses.
questions?
Any more witnesses
Okay,
by the
please
state?
don't talk about the case. Read, watch, or listen to any account. See you later.
Is this the end of the case in chief? Were they gonna ask? I don't know if this is the end of the case in chief. This is a tough. Maybe pizza for lunch. They said they didn't get it, and then they got it, and so they took it over on, and then they turned it over. So, but I still don't think that new video evidence hurts anybody. If I was the defense, I'd have let it anyway. It shows even clearly that it was a lunch. They don't have anything. Come on, turn on audio. They have the audio off. Someone asked me, do I have a professional page? I'm trying to find it. Let me get the super chat. I think there's an issue as to jump kick man that requires a jury to make a determination as to deadly force.
On occasion, when things don't, they're
getting
not
kicked
going to show
with
up well
boots.
in the record, I'll either myself or have one of the parties take a picture. So we have experts to do it today, and the price was right. Mark? Send them to Mrs. Yeah.
Like there's an issue with jump kick man that requires a jury to make a determination as to deadly self-defense getting kicked with the boots. I don't know about that. I don't know what that one, Joseph.
That the state intends to rest.
Oh.
We've had some discussions regarding the testimony of Brandon Cramen. My understanding from the defense is
All right, here we go. State rests.
I think there's an agreement that essentially the court will just inform the jury that his testimony should be disregarded. And we're not going to go back into that. Stricken.
Okay.
Right. So I don't know when we want to address any motions outside the presence of the jury, but that's what I intend to do when we return.
Okay. Are there going to be any motions? Huh?
One.
Okay. Okay.
Once they officially rest, as it's happened.
Yeah. Go ahead.
They should just do it now. Do it
I'll tell
now.
you what it is, I'm not trying to hide from the court. They have not put in any evidence regarding a lawful order for a curfew violation. We'll be moving to dismiss that. We'll be renewing our objection to the count 6, but the court has already ruled, just so it's not waived. I think then we're ready to go.
A directed verdict, no?
All right. Yes, to the seventh count, did you want to address that there's no evidence on the?
We've had testimony from the detective that a curfew was in place.
It's not a lawful order.
Of course, not a lawful order.
Did he testify as to by whom the order had been issued?
No.
Yeah. It's not a lawful
I
order.
don't know about that one.
Yeah, that one's got to go. It's not a lawful order. So damn, they got. Even though.
I would expect that there would have to be just the mere statement that a detective said that there was a curfew in effect doesn't really satisfy the burden of proof.
This is
I will
crazy.
permit you to reopen the evidence. No, I don't want to. This is. I'm pretty.
He just said he closed. That's why I brought it up.
No. You know what? You know what? There are some judges. When I went to judges training years, this is back a long time ago. Right after I came on the bench, I sat down with some judges, and one was from Madison and was testifying about this. She didn't know what to do because she's got the pending burglary case, and she says they didn't prove that the city of, I'm going to say Middleton, but maybe it was Madison, one of the two.
I'll get to your
prove that
super
it was
chats in a
Dane
second.
County, and she didn't know whether to grant the motion to dismiss or not. And I didn't say anything, but I thought to myself, you've got to be kidding me. We're here to get to the truth of things. And I don't want to mess around with an error in presentation of that magnitude or what's the opposite of magnitude?
You didn't have the authority in another court to issue that order.
That is another issue. So actually, the easy course would be to grant your motion, so I won't have to enter the thicket that the other judge did. But I'll take it. I'll take this weighty matter under advisement. Yeah, I know it. I know it. I'm not going to dismiss it on the ground that it wasn't proved. Whether I grant it on the basis that Judge Russell did is another matter. I'll have to take a look at that. And then I'd like you to submit in the next day proposed instructions modified
Oh,
version
so
2176.
they're going straight to.
with
All right, he's not going to dismiss it.
Because Mr. Kraus did a nice job on the brief and reported what the instructions committee said. And so I'd like both sides to submit proposed instructions on 2176. Okay? All right, enjoy your lunch.
So we have an interesting development because it looks like the court is going all the way. He's going to have them go straight. He's going to have them go to verdict. I don't know why. I don't know why he's going to verdict, but he's going to verdict on these. But I think, well, we'll see, because he might dismiss the curfew charge, which I thought would be the opposite. But I don't see how you get not guilty. I don't see how you get anything but not guilty. I don't even see a preponderance of the evidence here. But maybe he doesn't want to have the chance of being turned over on the appeal. I think there are some issues. There's an issue as a jump kick man that requires a jury to make the determination as to deadly self-defense for getting kicked with boots. I don't think so, because you can do it with Huber's skateboard, not in grabbing the gun nonsense alone. So, this judge, this guy is the judge version of a teacher who lets his class be all wild and out of control. Looks clueless. I think the judge is good. He's an old school judge. He's just like, we've done this before. It is what it is. Where's Apollo's manager to plead the throw the damn towel? Yeah. Well, we've been going days for this, right? Days with this. It's like this. None of these witnesses helped the defense today. None of these witnesses, helped the prosecution today. And it's just like, all right. The only reason I see for the whole trial is to vindicate Kyle in the eye of the public after the left-wing media vilified him. Clear cut from day one. Yeah, I got a video coming out with the Young Turks that are about the same thing. This is, it's just kind of insane. It's insane. It's insane. Let me take a couple more questions. Nate, the lawyer, it's weird that 10 witnesses in total help the defense. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I do not know. None of this makes sense to me. I'm just being honest with you guys. None of this makes sense to me. Why were these charges brought? Why are we here? All their witnesses are what? I don't know. So with that said, I'm going to end this stream because I got to go pick up kids and do a whole bunch of stuff, but I'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with Arbery coverage. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody here. Any reasonable person who watched any of this could find this guy guilty, right? And you got problems with the gun charge and the curfew charge now, so really? So hopefully you guys think about this. I got the video on the Young Turks coming out tonight, how they misled everybody for a year and a half. Tomorrow we'll do Arbery for the morning again, to see what's going on with that trial. I know they're going to come back in the afternoon, but by that time we pick up children. Listen, thanks you guys for watching, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have a little bit more excitement, but hopefully today. If you guys want to keep watching, I'm going to be stopping over on Nick Reccietta's stream, probably in about 20 minutes. So I'll be over there. I'll talk some crap over there, and then I got to go pick up my kid. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow so we can continue watching the Ahmaud Arbery case. So my name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time. Peace.